time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here, Richard Campbell's here, and I'm here. I'm going to show you Windows 11 running on a Mac. Now official. Paul will give us his commentary, as will Richard. We'll also talk about more bad news for PC makers. And Bing AI, why people were a little, I think, over the top about Bing AI. That and a whole lot more. Plus, Richard gives us a tour of Barley. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. Episode 817, recorded Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. The moment of confusion. Windows Weekly is brought to you by ACI Learning. Tech is one industry where opportunities outpace growth, especially in cybersecurity. 1/3 of information security jobs require a cybersecurity certification. Where do you get one? Well, to maintain your competitive edge across audit, IT, and cybersecurity readiness. You just got to go to go.acilearning.com/twit. Thanks for listening to this show as an ad-supported network. We are always looking for new partners with products and services that will benefit our qualified audience. Are you ready to grow your business? Reach out to advertise@twit.tv and launch your campaign now. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Microsoft with Paulie Thurrott, little Paulie Walnuts from beautiful Lower Macungie, PA. He is, of course, at thurrott.com on the interwebs, and he is also a published author. On how many books now?
I lost count, but it's close to 30.
Many books. His latest, The Field Guide to Windows 11, is at LeanPub. LeanPub.com.
My latest isn't public yet, but that's the...
Oh, and there's a new one coming.
It's coming soon.
That can't be called your latest until you've got a cover.
Fine.
I have a cover for our newest show. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Very excited. Dan did this for me. Where is it? Got to show you. In our Twit forums. Oh, I don't have the thing I need. The thing I need, I have. Here it is. Are you ready for our newest show, ladies and gentlemen?
On Mac action.
This Week in AI.
There you go.
I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that.
Is one of the co-hosts an AI construct?
So, well, one of our staff members said, we should just have an AI write it, produce it, voice it, and push it. And then we don't have to do anything.
Right. I like it.
It's just an automatic program. That's Richard Campbell on the right. He is a true Scotsman. And also joins us from beautiful Coquitlam in the Great White North. Hello, Richard.
Hello. I have published exactly 2 books. One, they were both on Visual Basic N-tier architecture, because I feel after that, if you continue to make books, you aren't learning.
That's exactly right. You nailed it.
That's good.
It took me 13. Paul hasn't learned that lesson.
I've learned other lessons. They're wrong lessons.
Incorrect lessons entirely.
Yep.
So Microsoft made it official. I have many questions. But Microsoft made it official that you can. Is Windows on ARM out of beta now?
Well, it's been out of beta for
on
3 or 4 years.
PCs.
Yeah,
but I can only run
the way
the beta
this has
on my
worked
Mac.
is that So Apple, when they switched the Apple Silicon architecture, this broke all of the virtualization solutions. Right. They also got rid of Boot Camp.
Right.
So Parallels, Fusion appeared quickly actually. And the problem is you technically probably could, but they don't emulate Intel-based operating systems like x86 for performance reasons, right? So they can only emulate or virtualize ARM-based systems. So the only way to acquire an ARM-based version of Windows 10, now 11, was with a new computer, right? So the only way to get that thing on Parallels or Fusion on a Mac was to download the Windows Insider Preview version, which meant you were on a perpetual upgrade cycle. You have to keep upgrading.
And when I did it, and that was practically the beginning of the Apple Silicon Macs, I think.
Yeah.
Windows on ARM was kind of very much a work in progress. I mean, I couldn't even run some of the built-in accessory apps that Microsoft ships.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, so, I mean, we've had some issues on the hardware side for sure with ARM, but Windows on ARM itself from a software standpoint has actually matured pretty nicely over the past
so
several
that
years.
was my reaction. I installed it as soon as it was official.
Yep.
You have to use
you can run
Parallels, which is one of several options on the Mac. There's also VMware's Fusion, and there's, I presume, VirtualBox and there's Kimu and stuff. But I already had a subscription to Parallels. You want to see it? You want to see me do it?
Yeah. I mean, one of the nice things about Parallels is that they offer kind of an automated wizard for this process.
They sure do. I was really surprised.
Yeah. So what you're really, the big thing that's changed is that Microsoft now officially supports this.
Right.
So you can use a Windows license and apply it toward Windows and ARM.
Right. So
I should say with some caveats, right? So one of those caveats is it only works with Pro or Enterprise. So you actually have to spend.
I have Pro. It was $200. $200 smackaroos. Could I have used somebody else? Somebody else's?
Yeah, I believe so. This is something I want to test. My Mac is in a storage container right now, but yes, I will be testing that soon. I believe that you could just do it, don't buy it, and then apply your key, and it should work. It's just another version of Windows. So
I blew it.
That should work fine.
Yeah. Oh well.
The issue, by the way, still, I just real quick is, and this is an issue for people who have Microsoft or Qualcomm hardware, is you still can't go somewhere on the web to Windows.com or whatever and download an ARM-based version of Windows. That's still not a thing for some reason, at least not officially. And I don't know. I would like to see that happen because one of the problems I have is I have an ARM machine that's on the Insider Preview and now it can't get out. There's no way to blow it away and just go back to stable.
So I am now playing, Microsoft Solitaire, which was in the old days, that was, I don't want to be an Xbox Live. In the old days, this was kind of your test.
Sure. Was
how fast does it deal the cards, right? Oh, I need a new game. Let's do a new one here. Oh, it's not dealing them. I used to deal them. Oh, well. What like.
Well, by the way, this might be one of the things that's problematic on ARM because I mentioned one caveat.
There you go.
The other one is that there's some issues with graphical apps, especially games. Yeah,
this looks good. I don't have a problem.
That's fine.
There's no DirectX 12. There's no OpenGL. There's no Windows subsystem for Linux. There's a lot of no's.
Well, you don't have virtualization within virtualization doesn't work, right? So anything that requires virtualization, WSA, WSL, Windows Sandbox.
This seems pretty snappy though, and this is only using 8 gigs of RAM, which was the default that it chose.
This is a terrible thing to say out loud and to even contemplate, but there's been a myth over many years that the best way to run Windows is on a Mac. That's always been nonsense.
Yeah.
I will say the best way to run Windows on ARM today actually is on a Mac.
Right.
And it's bizarre that a virtualized version of Windows 11 on ARM runs better than Windows 11 on ARM does on Snapdragon hardware. But that's a fact.
Is that just because the M1's that good?
Honestly, I have no idea why.
You're saying that with tongue firmly planted in cheek, Mr. Campbell.
No,
I think.
I'm pretty much of the camp that the best silicon made right now, the M1 and M2 chips.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with them. I mean, Intel has a faster i9,
Sure.
Yeah.
If you're willing to light the house, and heat the house with it.
And their chip architecture's got much longer pipelines. They have 2 sets of pipelines, a shorter one and a longer one. It's way more complicated instruction set.
Right.
In terms of for a given processing use, you do a lot more every cycle in an Intel chip than you do in any of the ARM chips.
Right.
Speaking of which, maybe one of you guys knows something about this that I don't. I had a meeting recently that AMD attended, and somebody asked there are actually several guys from AMD, but they asked them, they said, hey, are you guys ever going to do what Intel is doing and do kind of a former performance efficiency core type architecture? And the guy who answered that question was a senior engineer of some kind, laughed and said, no, why would we ever do that? And I said, well, Intel's doing it. And he says, yeah, but we have our cores adapt. So our cores can all be big or little, or they can be faster, efficient. He said, we don't have to do that. And he says, when you do that, what Intel is doing, you introduce all these inefficiencies. And I'd have to look at my notes now because I don't remember exactly what he said they were. But he said that it's going to take them a few generations to kind of get this right, which is interesting because I've kind of made that argument, knowing nothing about it. But I kind of assumed like AMD would have to at some point do this too. But the way he described it was no.
The long pipeline is a trap that Intel can't get out of.
Yeah.
And that's why they did the short pipeline processor code to see how many workloads they could get over to there.
Interesting.
The problem is that now you have a preprocessor that looks and says, could this run on a short pipeline? Because if it gets it wrong, it'll get a fault and it'd have to re-execute on the long pipeline.
Right. And by the way, that's where Meltdown and Spectre come from.
Yeah,
is these long pipelines.
This is punishment for making processors for 40 years.
Right. You've been really successful. Let's punish
legacy.
You now.
Yeah. But if you look at what they were trying to do with Itanium, they were trying to ditch the long pipeline.
Oh, interesting.
But they've always tried to ditch the long pipeline.
And nobody bought it, and we're still with x86.
But
no one bought it because the Itanium was the size of a Volkswagen.
Well, it also was a little warm. And
it didn't run anything.
There were a lot of problems.
But it was big and heavy and slow, and it didn't run anything.
But no, that's why
CISC wasn't successful.
CISC is, at this point, is CISC seen as a kind of dead end and RISC is the future?
Well, but that likely was always true. The only case where this really made a difference, and this is me, serving as an IT consultant, buying a hardware for SQL Server. And to get the same IOPS out of an Intel server took fewer processors than the AMD.
Because of concurrency?
Yeah, and the AMD had more processors available. So we got good yield from it, and the machines were less expensive. But the licenses cost more because at that time, Microsoft charged per processor.
That's right. So anyway, as you've been talking, and people who are watching the video know, I've been running... just messing around. I don't know if it seems like it runs not like full speed, like normally. In 8 gigs of RAM, and the Mac is still running. The Mac hasn't gone away.
You could do coherence mode and just run
coherence is super cool. Yeah, let me show you that. If I go out of
it's actually really cool.
Full screen. Let me launch our favorite program, ClipChamp.
Well, ClipChamp.
Well, I only mention that because it has no corresponding app on Mac.
Well, iMovie.
Yeah, no, I mean, but there's no ClipChamp on Mac.
Oh, I guess. Well, actually, there is, Leo. That's the web app, so you can.
Oh, yeah. Okay, never mind. Well, anyway, I'm going to run ClipChamp. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm running it in a window on the Mac. So the Mac is still here. Look, I can even run Emacs and ClipChamp at the same time. Is that awesome?
What kind of insane person would do that?
So, well, and actually, there is a point to that because you can't use WSL on the virtualization of Windows. Right. So if I'm going to run Emacs, it's going to be on my Mac. I have to say, this is pretty good. It's supporting things like the Mac. You can see this Mac Snap, which is snapping it to various.
I was going to say, what is this Snap thing you're using? That's a third party.
Well, Apple has some of that, but I'm actually using something I think called Rectangle.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not Apple. That's
well, Apple has some snapping. It does some snapping. Anyway, it's I mean, this is coherent. So what it means is I'm running in a window. Yeah. I'm running a Windows app.
You don't have to look at the Windows desktop. And by the way, I think for most people, that's what they would want. They're on a Mac. That's whatever choice they made. Mm-hmm. But they need this one thing.
This one thing. That's what it's
whatever
for.
It might be. It's probably not ClipChamp, by the way, but whatever that one thing is.
It's the one thing we don't need probably, but
probably
okay.
a line of business app from work or something. Whatever.
Yeah, to the MLS app or whatever that still is running only on Windows 95 or whatever it is.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, I have to say, so this is. And then if I want to go, I'm running in parallels, and if I want to go back to a full screen of Windows, I can. But that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I have to say it works quite well. I'm very
it always
happy
has,
with it.
honestly. I mean,
look, I even have the start menu. That's a little weird. Yeah, because I'm in coherence mode. You
can mix and match. Like you could put shortcuts to Windows apps on your dock.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Just never even look at this thing.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Wow. And it runs, as I said, it runs pretty well. I still have the Apple stuff here.
And you're saying this system only has 8 gigs of RAM?
This is a 24 gig system, but when Parallels installed it, I didn't even give it anything.
Gotcha.
By the way, that you were saying that the onboarding is great. It is. I realized I had a Parallels subscription, so I downloaded Parallels, put in, logged into it, and I said, yeah, I'd like to run Windows 11. It downloaded Windows 11, installed it, and
so this,
within a minute was running.
It downloaded Windows 11.
Yeah, for
and
me.
It's a real version of Windows 11, not an insider preview version. So that means it's out there somewhere.
Yeah,
just not otherwise available.
That was the press. That was the press release, though. Was you now can do this with a real version, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty interesting thing. I have to say, I'm pretty happy. I'll probably keep this on here. It doesn't occupy a lot of space. You have, you as always with virtualization, you have like a little ISO type of I can show you a little virtualization file here. That is Windows 11 PVM is the Parallels file format.
This is the hard disk.
It's it's 46 gigs. Oh, one other thing that's pretty cool is it automatically turns on sharing, so I can see the Mac drive.
That's right.
I can save to the Mac drive, but I also get my documents and all the Windows style.
We'll do a pass through where your Mac desktop appears as the Windows desktop. Whatever files go back and forth. It's smart. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think they've done a really interesting job with the whole thing. So.
Still begs the question, what's the one app?
Well, there are 2 big use cases, right? I think a lot of times it's going to be an organization where they have an in-house app. So it's not like a public app. And then the other one I think is developers, right? They need to test whatever they're making across multiple browsers and multiple platforms. And the Mac is the one place you can do basically all of that.
That's true. You don't get Android. You don't get the
Safari elsewhere.
You don't get the subsystem for Android. You do get Edge. Hey, wait. But I'd get that anyway on the Mac.
If your browser isn't kludgy enough, might we recommend?
I also get the fabulous widgets. I get the widgets. Everybody loves the widgets. I have the search, by the way, note, the search pill.
Yep. Without search highlights, by the way. Very nice.
I turned that off.
Okay.
I'm a sophisticated enough to have. It came with search highlights turned on.
Yeah.
We'll turn it back on so you feel more at home.
No, I actually feel more at home when it's off.
I know. 49 life hacks I wish I'd known sooner. Wait a minute. Forget that novel I was writing.
Right. What was I looking for again? Was it 49 life hacks? I don't think so. But let me click on this just in case.
So when it installed, I mean, literally, it asked me nothing. It didn't.
You have an image of New Orleans here on the back?
This is Bing wallpaper, and it's still on Mardi Gras yesterday. I think it should update pretty soon. I don't know. There's OneDrive, so I have all my OneDrive stuff. Yeah, it's cool. It's a little weird, but it's cool. Let me see what.
Remarkable lack of vomit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's 20
early
feet
in
up.
the morning. After the cleaners have gone through. Yep. So I don't know why it didn't update. It's supposed to. Oh, here we go. Let's refresh and see what it is today. What is today's Bing wallpaper? I actually like Bing wallpaper. I would use it on a Mac if I could. What else is there?
You're using it right now.
Yeah, I guess I am, aren't I? So some of this is.
Look how they gave you Mac style icons.
Oh yeah, they did, didn't they?
The blue folder icons.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So there's the local disk C, which is actually not. It's the virtualization disk.
Right.
And then I have a Mac disk as well. Apparently I have a Linux disk. I don't know.
That's interesting.
Where that came from. Is that OneDrive? What the hell's that?
Nope. That's no. Although, by the way, when you have the Windows subsystem for Linux installed, you do get a little thing over there.
And so that's what I'm saying is maybe my other Windows install, which does have WSL, maybe it copied the Linux desktop to OneDrive. Or
that's kind of curious. Click on one of those things.
You can't have the Linux. Oh, look at that. Oh, you know what? This might be the Mac. This is my Mac stuff.
Okay.
It's identifying it as Linux. Okay, that's a bug. That's a little bit of a bug. What happens if I...
You heard it here first, folks. Mac is really running Linux.
It's really running Linux under the hood.
You knew it.
Here, let's just open 15 programming problems in Notepad. I'm going to say just once. But notice it gave me Mac as well as Windows apps to open that with.
Yeah, that's right.
That was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's nice.
So open with is.
So you should
and
also
it even
be able
says
to do,
Mac.
what is it, like Command Space to do the, what do they call it, on Spotlight or whatever?
Yeah, that's working.
And then run a Windows app from there. Type in Notepad. I bet that works fine.
Let me try. Not yet, but I think it would. This is not the standard. This is not a search Spotlight. It's something else.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I bet.
But I bet it would. I know I can. As you said, I could put on the Mac. I could put Windows apps in my dock.
Yep.
In fact, there's Word. Holy camole! Look at that. In Windows.
Word as God intended it, running on Windows.
All right. Anyway, I thought I'd bring this in, give you a little show and tell. Cool. I think it's done a nice job, except for identifying a Mac as a Linux PC.
Well, yeah, but that might be purposeful too, right? They're trying to just that's what's in Windows, so they just trying to make it native looking.
Yeah.
I think that stuff works great.
I'm very impressed. It works. So as I was saying, the onboarding is completely. They don't. I've used Parallels before where they ask you all these questions.
Yep.
Nothing.
I mean, I think you can still do like a manual.
Oh, I can go back into settings now, and I can give it more RAM. I can make it harder, larger hard drive. As I showed you, it's about a 46 gig hard drive. That's the Windows install, but it expands and contracts as you add stuff to it. But on a reasonably sized Mac hard drive, even 512 gigs, you get plenty of room. It's a much better than trying to run boot camp and partitioning it and all that.
Right.
But you can't do some of the things you could do with Boot Camp, like DirectX games and stuff like that. All right.
I don't see Boot Camp ever coming back. I think this.
No, I don't. No, I think Apple's virtually said no.
Yeah,
and it does run DirectX 11, which is not as fast as DirectX 12.
But it's better than 12. I mean, it's better than nothing. I mean.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point.
Usually see how a game would react.
So if I find it, let me see if I find what would you suggest?
Crisis.
I mean, the only actually, here's what to do. Whatever the latest Asphalt is, Asphalt 9 or whatever it's called. That's probably a good.
I mean, I think mostly I probably would do Xbox Cloud Gaming or something like that, but
yeah,
because I can do that.
For some reason, the racing games always run well. Even though they look really good. Asphalt 9 Legends.
Get it from Microsoft Store. This site is trying to open the Microsoft Store. Why would you ever want to do that? Always allow Bing.com to open links of that type. Yes, indeed.
Jesus sold your soul right there. Yeah, that was when it happened.
Directly to darkness.
Does the Microsoft Store, is it playing a banjo right now? What's going on?
So I'll download this. This will take a little while.
Yeah, this could
let you
take
guys
a while,
continue with your silly talk, and then as soon as Asphalt 9 is running, we're going racing.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Oh my gosh.
So one of the big and yet quiet stories since Windows 11 22H2 came out last year is that Microsoft intends to ship some number of what they're calling internally moments or moment updates. And in a traditional way, it appears that the first of those is about to hit stable because this thing has made its way through dev, beta, and now release preview channel, which is the traditional way for this to happen, right? It's they've skipped some steps with other releases, but it looks like this is happening. So there is if you were on the release preview in Windows 11, you can see some of the stuff that's going to be in this next moment update, meaning it's probably going to come out in about a month on Patch Tuesday in March, right? So nothing super dramatic. It's the new kind of tablet, it's not a tablet. They're not going to call it tablet mode, but like the touch optimized taskbar. If you remove the keyboard from a tablet, you'll get something that's more akin to what you would want when you're, using it with your hands. Integrated Windows Studio effects, some new accessibility stuff, etc. But nothing major. But this is the first one. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Moment. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
What does moment? What does a moment mean to you?
It's that moment where you don't know where the stuff you were looking for is.
Right. To me, what a moment is it's the beginning of a 60-day period of uncertainty, because it's going to appear on some computers and not others, and there'll be different build numbers. And this one will have the features even though it's not a high enough build number, and this one won't even though it is. And that's the way these have gone.
So it's the moment of confusion?
Exactly. It's the beginning of the moment of, yeah, for sure.
I mean, you brought up the collapsed icon bar, which, I mean, Steven Sinofsky would be proud. This is what they were trying to do in Win 8 back in the day.
Do not you ever let those words pass your lips in my presence.
Steven Sinofsky. Slowly I turned.
Yes. Well, yes. Anyway, yes. Damn him, yes.
Joe Bête Noir. All right. Beta channel builds.
Yeah, so in addition to the release preview build that came out yesterday or today, I don't remember when that happened. Late last week, we got 2 builds in the beta channel, and that's how they're doing things now. Remember, one build stream gets the new feature and one doesn't. And if you're in the part of the beta channel that's not getting the new features automatically, you can actually check for updates in Windows Update, and you can download the KB, whatever it is, and get them. So that's there. Nothing major. Again, new widgets. These are third-party widgets. Mostly Facebook Messenger, Spotify, some others. There's you're gonna like this one. AI-powered recommendations in Start for those PCs that are joined to an AAD or Azure Active Directory domain. So what does that mean? What that means is you have a pin section in the Start menu. You have a recommended section. By default, recommended is a weird combination of recently installed or recommended, or if you check this box, apps used the most, and recent documents. And so what this is going to do is surface recent documents from inside your organization that may be pertinent to you, supposedly using AI to make that recommendation. There are no words. So I don't know.
AI.
There you go.
Soon it's going to be everywhere.
Well, it is in a way, right? So the Windows Studio Effects feature I mentioned briefly that is now available in Release Preview is a set of AI-powered features, right? These are those things where, the webcam makes it look like your eyes are looking forward, even if you're kind of looking around. Or
Daniel Rubino was on Twit on Sunday, and but he was using the NVIDIA one, and it was uncanny. I mean, it really worked. Really? Worked beautifully for the whole 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
The only weird thing is at one point, and it's the thumbnail for the show, he put his finger in front of his eye, and the eye popped out and went right in front of the finger.
Oh, God. Oh, jeez.
Other than that, he looked down, he was reading a document, looking down, and he was still, it's a little uncanny because the eye contact is 100% full, but I
like to play video games during work meetings, so this would be good for me.
It's great for that. It was amazing, and it didn't
need
look
a couple
weird.
more features, right? It's got to blink a little, look away a little.
Yeah,
like if it just wasn't that rigid, locked on effect.
Sure.
And just don't put your hand in front of your eyes. That's all.
Instead of like normalized, they're like cat eyes. And what that means is like all of a sudden they just look off in a corner like something's going on. They're like, just I don't like that.
Now look, in anime culture, it's normal for the eye to show through the hair.
Oh, right. So this is perfect for that.
Yeah, for the younger generation, that wouldn't bother them at all.
But you could see even the fact the fingers there, that the eye contact is like, it feels very genuine, like he's really looking into my soul.
He really is.
Yeah.
I actually kind of like him more now. I've always liked Dan. I don't want anyone to misconstrue that.
Don't misconstrue that. No. Yeah. And Daniel's great.
Yeah.
So here's another shot from the show, just so you get a better sense of how that works. Okay, there we go. Moving right along. We're going to get to AI in a bit. We're going to do a full segment on that sucker.
It's great. We've had a couple of, finally AI is not the first subject.
Stories.
It takes the first hour.
Yeah, right. It will.
We'll call it
We're trying to live and grow here, just
down
to number 2. So it is almost the end of February, meaning we're almost 2/3 of the way through this quarter. So I'm kind of hoping we're done with earnings from the previous quarter, but one of the last companies to check in, I hope, was Lenovo, who, of course, is the world's largest PC maker. Not surprisingly, their revenues fell 24% in the fourth quarter. Like a lot of other PC makers, especially the big guys, they've been trying to diversify their business. And the thing that was interesting to me about this report was they almost didn't discuss PCs at all. It was like PCs didn't happen. And they were quick to point out that they were the world's biggest maker of PCs still. And then they kind of stopped talking about it. And I think part of the rationale there is they're trying to show, like, look, we're resilient. We have these other businesses that are now a bigger chunk of what we do.
What are those other businesses?
I don't know, Leo. I honestly,
they have a phone business because they bought Motorola.
They have data center stuff, and I'm sure there's a whole services thing going on. But all I care about is PCs. So,
I'm going to do my part. I'm going to buy another ThinkPad today.
There you go. Actually, the Mobile World Congress is coming up.
Oh yeah, I'll wait.
Yeah. So,
well, now that I can run Windows on my Mac, who needs a ThinkPad? You're ready for You ready for some Gameloft action?
Oh, yes.
Excited.
This is good. I turned the sound up.
Okay.
Well, it kind of looks like it's working. By the way, somebody asked. By the way, this is cool. Look, when I turn the Apple sound, the Windows sound pops up and does it too. It's like they're in sync.
That's nice. So you can see how they copied it. It makes it really easy.
Makes it really do.
Because it used to be over in the corner, and now it's right there.
I am a youthful 66-year-old male, and I'm going to accept that. Well, I can't really accept it. I can only just live with it. Synchronizing to my previous games. Just play, right? I'm not going to connect it with another Xbox. Yeah.
It should just run. I think it will.
So somebody asked, well, how do you know it's the Windows? It's the ARM version of Asphalt 9.
Is it the case that if it's in the store?
Okay, but if the store brought it up, right? So if the store let me,
by the way, you could be emulating an Intel version of this.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Let me look. It may be ARM native. I'm not sure.
I mean, look, this is a cutscene, obviously, but it's playing just fine.
Yeah, but video is one thing.
Yeah, let's play a game. Shall we play a game? Okay, I just want to play a game. Hold the W key to accelerate. Okay. Cool. There's a little hesitation.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going to blame that on why I keep crashing.
There you go.
There's fireworks over Paris tonight as Leo Laporte takes the wheel of the Asphalt Ferrari. F1 trials begin today, so this is perfect timing. All right, you know what? This is totally playable. I mean, it's not. Okay, down arrow.
It's not going to be.
Press hold the down arrow or S while steering to drift.
Why can't I find this?
Press the to drift. Yes, fine. I'm crashing into stuff while I'm. Oh, God.
All right, so I believe this is only an X64 game.
Oh, very interesting.
It's emulating.
Yeah, so it's emulating.
Wow. DirectX 11, I presume. I don't want to drift left.
Close it. I'm sorry. I assume you're right.
Drift left. Okay. Yeah, right into that store. Oh, I know this part of Paris. This is great. The obelisk is right ahead.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know where I am. Is that the Elizabeth Tower? Maybe I'm in London. I won't know till I see the Ferris wheel. Oh, this is fun. Oh, Nitro boost.
There you go. Oh, fast is a good idea.
On your PC.
I'm missing everything. Oh, into the sand.
Like you're in Pennsylvania. What's going on here?
Okay, so this is running pretty well. You would agree, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, granted, we kind of tilted the deck here, so to speak. This game, for some reason, always runs great. Even on pretty low-end hardware.
This is, I can use Shockwave? And then press the space bar.
Does that like knock other cars out of the way?
Yeah. Finish. Yes, let's finish. So, that's, you know what? I didn't even think of this. That's pretty amazing.
Impressive.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah.
And just to prove it, this is running on an M2 Mac. This is the latest MacBook Air M2, 24 gigs of RAM, not a huge amount of RAM. That's pretty good. Pretty good.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all. Emulated.
emulated. And you're saying it's x86 emulation. That's pretty amazing.
64, but yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
So the store doesn't say anything about anything. It just says this product should work on your device.
Right. Well, because the store sees your computer, knows what it is, and knows that it will run.
Available on Xbox OS.
It does say
x64.
X64.
Right. Look at that. DirectX 10.
10.
Yeah, and I have 6 gigs of RAM. I'm running this in did I say 6 or 8? Maybe it's 8.
I think you said 8.
8.
But I'm not sure.
You're right. This is not a super demanding game, but nevertheless.
But it looks great, and it's fast moving. It's a nice demo.
Yeah. I mean, everything's smooth. Look at the scrolling smooth. Everything's pretty smooth. And we should say, by the way, I am not even direct connected. This is connected via Wi-Fi and AirPlay to an Apple TV. This is how you're seeing it.
Well, it just goes to show you that we've been let down on the hardware side, and this is why we're waiting for Qualcomm to finish up its, what was that company called? Nuvia,
yeah.
That they purchased.
Yeah.
So we should get the first announcements late this year, and then the first product a year from now. That is my guess.
And is this actually going to be a Microsoft branded processor, or is this going to?
Well, there might be a Microsoft version of it, but it'll be a Qualcomm processor first. Yeah.
So that was a demonstration of Apple Silicon running Windows in a VM.
Well, as we do here on Windows
Weekly,
we try to promote Apple hardware as much as possible. And so thank you for that, Leo.
No, I'm actually just kind of
it's
shocked, to be honest. It's yeah.
Well, I've done it enough; it doesn't surprise me. But it is a sad reality that Windows on ARM today runs better and virtualized on Apple than it does on actual hardware. It's sad.
Yeah, I avoided buying that HP Folio and a bunch of other Windows on ARM machines because you said they were sluggish. The only one I ever bought was terrible.
They've gotten better. I mean, I don't mean to dump on them completely. The latest gen, whatever it's called, is pretty good. There's the Lenovo ThinkPad X31S, maybe, whatever. It's okay. It's okay. But it drops the ball a lot. You think you're kind of going along fine, and then all of a sudden everything grinds to a halt.
Well, I would say you shouldn't do it unless you run pretty standard apps. Obviously, this isn't for the weirdo apps or the pro, video.
Well, you're also going to run into some troubles, and this is not. I don't see where this gets solved, but you're going to run into problems with driver type stuff where HP has a printer that's an all-in-one that does scanning and whatever, and they have this custom software. And that stuff's never getting installed. That's never.
I asked Daniel if the holdup was, as we had theorized in the past, that Qualcomm had some sort of exclusive with Microsoft. He said he didn't think so. It was really just a driver issue. It was just getting the software to work, and it just took that long. You said Parallels promised this a year and a half ago.
Oh, the issue getting it on
Silicon.
On Apple. Yeah. So actually, okay, that's an interesting point. So. I talk to Qualcomm every year. Not Qualcomm. I talk to Parallels every year when they release new versions of the software, and I test it every year and I look at it. And about a year and a half ago, so 2 versions ago, they told me, they said, this is happening, and it never happened, And oddly, that guy doesn't work at Parallels anymore. But anyway, the point is, or a Corella, whatever it is, this has been coming for a long time. I wonder if the list of things that doesn't work is a clue about why this wasn't supported officially. I think one of the things that had to happen was x64 emulation first, which happened whenever that was, a year or 2 ago. I think if you look at the things that don't work, it's this is obviously something for businesses, right? They're requiring, Windows 11 Pro or Enterprise for one thing, which is interesting. All the virtualization stuff doesn't work, right? WSL, WSA, Sandbox, et cetera, et cetera. DirectX 12 doesn't work. I know that's a gaming thing, whatever. But I kind of wonder if there wasn't a bigger list of these things that weren't working properly, and that maybe that's sort of what Daniel said, I guess, is that as those problems started to disappear, this list became more manageable. It's look, this is reasonable.
When I look at the list of the things that don't run, they all strike me as ring zero things. The distinction between DirectX 11 and DirectX 12 is DirectX 11 is ring 3, DirectX 12 is ring 0.
Right.
So that's interesting. So in other words, DirectX 11 runs in user space.
That's right.
And DirectX 12 runs in system space.
Yeah.
Protected system space.
And DirectX 11 is highly compatible. It runs everywhere.
Right.
It doesn't matter what chipset you've got. It doesn't matter what processor you're using.
The other interesting note here is when Windows and ARM first appeared, it was 32-bit only. It was a 32-bit ARM, and it was only ran 32-bit. Wait, is that right? Yes. And it only ran 32-bit Windows apps and emulation. So over time, x64 happened. It became 64-bit, et cetera. This, on Apple hardware, this thing does not support 32-bit ARM apps, which are in the process of being deprecated across
anyway.
all
They're not going to fix it. They're just going to eliminate it.
Yeah, just get rid of them. Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of an interesting thing. I don't know. I don't know that there are a lot of native 64-bit ARM apps out in the world, but and Richard knows more than this than I do. I know it's not. I know it sounds as simple as checking a box in Visual Studio or whatever, and outputting all different.
For .NET, it is pretty much right. Yeah. Like for the most part, because it's so abstracted, right? That's what the common language runtime has always been about. Yep. Is that you don't need to know; it will simply compile too.
You'll just do it. Yeah.
And I think you're going to talk later about the 17.5, like. The whole ARM stack is back in force in Studio, which to me says they're gearing up for the devs to be able to push to native ARM 64.
And I think whatever this Nuvia thing is coming down the pipe, this new generation of Qualcomm chipsets will finally make ARM not just viable for normal people, but also possibly for developers as well. Whereas today, I think it's a little experimental. It feels, to me.
Well, there's going to be edges, right? And but you hit on the main thing, which is drivers.
Yeah, that's the tough one.
And certainly legacy drivers.
That's the thing. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's depending on how people do things.
Yeah,
you're either going to be perfectly okay, or this is completely unacceptable.
And people, you're meaning companies like Hewlett Packard.
Yeah, well, for example,
I've got a plotter that's a few years old. And the Win 10 driver works a dream, and it refuses to run a Win 11.
Yeah, let alone on ARM. God knows.
Let alone on ARM. ARM, forget it. You have no.
I mean, but for a lot of people, you open your laptop, you connect to some printer that's on the network. It just works. You don't really think about it.
Yeah.
And those class drivers are available across all versions of Windows. That will work fine. So, depending on your needs, an ARM machine could be perfectly compatible with whatever you use.
Yeah, a class 4 driver will generally let you print, right?
Yeah, and print correctly, right? Not just print.
I'm complaining about a network scanner, which
is a very specific,
forget it,
esoteric.
For the pain you will go through to make a network scanner work, you can buy USB scanners for everybody, and they will work.
Yep. Yeah, we'll get there. Not this year, but eventually. Before we move on, there was one bit I wanted to note from the Lenovo earnings, because the one thing they said, this is a quote from their earnings report that is the first time I've seen this. They were talking about all of the same macroeconomic pressures, blah, 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 whatever, all these things that are happening. They said the group, meaning the part of the company that makes PCs, expects to see year-on-year growth this year, resuming in the second half, with end user demand to be higher than pre-COVID levels. I have never seen any PC maker make such a claim.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be good news. One of the big questions with this downturn is how long it lasts.
Yeah.
Is it permanent? Where do we kind of level set going forward? But Lenovo apparently expects that they're going to see PC sales growth in the second half of the year, and demand to be higher than was the case before COVID. So
before COVID, it's critical, though, because all of the big demand spike was because of COVID. So they're going to say we're back to normal, basically. That spike,
well,
and
even
then
better
the
than normal in a way, right?
Yeah, and a little bit,
because
but normal was always kind of a little bit up all the time. Yes, no.
But it also
kind of
PC
flat. Sales fell for 7 years straight.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've got the supply chain problems, right? And they're still being straightened out. Like literally just getting ports properly cleared, getting empty containers where they need to be. Like they said that'd take a couple of years to get nailed down. But I also think, and this is certainly affecting me in my roles around investing and with traded companies, companies are realigning to the fact that money costs money now.
Right.
We've had 10 years of effectively 0% interest.
Yeah.
And now it isn't there. So,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Leo. I know.
everybody with
you,
a mortgage knows.
We stupidly bought an apartment with zero when it was zero, and now it's not zero.
Oh, but you got a adjustable rate?
Well, we have it's a home equity line of credit that's tied to prime, and
then prime changed.
Yeah, it used to be nothing, and then our bill last year tripled.
Wow,
right.
Our monthly bill. Yeah, that's how bad it was.
Oh, that's terrible.
And I'm doing acquisitions work with a few different organizations where the presumption for any acquisition was cash,
right?
Because cash
is free.
Cheap.
Yeah.
And now cash isn't cheap. So suddenly it's like, what does a stock deal look like? And crazily, because it's been so long,
right.
like folks don't even know. They're looking for the paperwork for how do we properly file for a stock-based acquisition.
Short memories.
It was 10 years ago. It really was.
That's funny.
Well, I haven't bought a house in 10 years, so I didn't know that.
You better off.
We better off. All right, let's take a little break. Then we are going to talk AI. I'm sorry, but we have to.
Don't be sorry.
No, actually, I think
AI overlords demand it.
I think it's honestly a fascinating topic. I'm not burned out on it yet. I'm sure our audience
I need more tea if we're talking AI. So let's take a
go get some tea. Our show today brought to you by, you probably notice it all through all of our shows, the great folks at ACI Learning, studio sponsors for the year. Thank you. Thank you, ACI Learning. You may say, well, who are these guys? Well, you know the name, IT Pro. IT Pro is now ACI Learning. They've merged, and by doing so, have actually added a huge amount of capability. So this is really good news for existing IT Pro customers, and if you're not yet an ACI Learning customer, maybe for you too. For the last decade, our partners at IT Pro have brought you, as you know, engaging, entertaining IT training, whether it's to level up your career or your organization or to even get that first job in IT. Well, now, because IT Pro is part of ACI Learning, it's expanding its reach. Production capabilities are improved. You're getting more content, the best content. And this is cool. You can learn any way you like. In the traditional on-demand way that IT Pro is known for. You could do it live with streaming and chat rooms. You can even do it in person because ACI Learning has learning hubs you can go to. And maybe you do both or a mix, right? So you learn online for a while, and then every once in a while, maybe spend a week at the learning hub to really nail down the information. You get to choose, and that's the beauty of this. And whether you're at the beginning of your IT career or you're looking to move up in your sector, ACI Learning is here to support your growth, not only in IT now, but cybersecurity. They've really beefed up the offerings there. And with Audit Pro, audit readiness. One of the most well-known beginner certs, we've talked about it many times, is CompTIA's A+ cert. Very popular for getting into IT. It shows you know the basics. You could do desktop support. CompTIA courses with IT Pro from ACI Learning make it very easy to go from listening to our shows. Obviously, you're interested, right? You have that IT mindset. You probably have a lot of technical skill and knowledge, but you can go from, kind of thinking, well, maybe I should have a career in IT to actually launching that career. Because it turns out, it doesn't matter how much you know in your brain, companies want to see those certs. They want to see not just the proof that you have the knowledge, but the demonstration that you were willing to kind of buckle down, study, take the exam, do all the things it took that will make you a great employee. Earning certificates opens the door to most entry-level IT positions. It also can get you a promotion if you're already in the field. In fact, don't you think any boss would say, oh, you just took and passed CISSP? Okay. We need more security professionals. Tech is one of those industries where opportunity has outpaced growth dramatically, especially in cybersecurity. A recent LinkedIn study predicts that IT jobs will be the number one in-demand jobs in 2023. That means there are more than 1 million unfilled positions. About a third of the information security jobs out there require a cybersecurity cert. So even if you're working in IT and you want to move into cybersecurity, you got to get those certs. In fact, 23% of all IT jobs require certs of one kind or another. So it really helps to have the training. Certainly helps to have the knowledge. Organizations are absolutely hungry for cybersecurity talent, and even though they're hiring as fast as they can, and some of our other sponsors talk about this. We need people. We need cybersecurity professionals. The average salary for cybersecurity professionals right now, $116,000 a year. $116,000 a year. ACI Learning's Information Security Analyst and Cybersecurity Specialist programs can help you get certified. In 2022, the global cybersecurity workforce gap increased 26.2% over the year before. I mean, that's more than a quarter. That's a lot of unfilled jobs. It's a lot of opportunity for you. ACI Learning offers multiple cybersecurity training programs, so you can enter the area or advance within the industry. The most popular, CISSP, I mentioned that. There's EC Council's Certified Ethical Hacker, CEH, Certified Network Defender, Cybersecurity Audit School, big demand for auditors, cybersecurity frameworks, and actually, if you're working in cybersecurity, preparing for audits, I know there's demand for that too. Where and how you learn matters. ACI Learning offers fully customizable training, whether you prefer in-person, on-demand, or remote. It's really a great way to get into the biz. Explore everything ACI Learning offers. They are really your headquarters for all of this. IT Pro, yes. The new Audit Pro, including enterprise solutions, webinars, the Skeptical Auditor podcast. You can start listening to that. That's awesome. Practice labs, which are great because you don't have to have the gear to work on the gear. Learning hubs, so you can go in person. They've got a partnership program, fantastic for organizations who want to upskill their employees. Tech is the industry where the opportunities are outpacing the supply is being outpaced by the demand, and that's really, really good for all of us because it means you can finally let your dreams come true and get that job. A third of information security jobs require a cybersecurity cert. Get the certs, get the skills to maintain your competitive edge across audit, IT, and cybersecurity readiness. go.acilearning.com/twit. Don't forget the go. And don't forget the special code TWIT30, which gets you 30% off either a standard or premium individual IT Pro membership. That's a good deal. TWIT30, the offer code. The website, go.acilearning.com/twit. We are thrilled to have, IT Pro's been with us for more than a decade. We're thrilled to have them and ACI Learning on the network. Thank you for buying studio naming rights. That's really helped us in the long run. And I encourage you, take advantage of this opportunity. Don't forget the offer code TWIT30 at go.acilearning.com/twit. I was, before you got up, I was telling Paul that I see the .NET Rocks mug, but I only see the CKS at the end, and I wasn't sure. Right. It is .NET Rocks. Okay.
And it's the vintage mug. It's the mug from like 2005.
Ooh.
So the photo of Carl on that, I think, is his high school picture.
Hey, does look young. Yeah. You both look kind of
Windows Forums was still the going concern when this.
The picture of me is like a week off of summiting Kilimanjaro. I'm still sunburned.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Wow.
And I just sort of tamed the beard.
Were you a mountain? Are you still a mountain climber?
I'm a little slower these days,
That's pretty cool.
Achille was a good climb.
How did you do it with the?
I did it the old-fashioned way with a pile of money. There were 10 paying climbers together. It's really a hike, and 85 porters when we started.
Sure. They basically drive you in a Land Rover to 10 feet from the summit. Then you get out. And,
You do have to do the walking, but they're carrying your bag, right? You have a backpack. And that team carried like a tent and table and benches for us so we could eat indoors. And they'd race ahead of you and set up for lunch, and then we,
I want to do this. You got to send me the information. This sounds great.
This is pretty glampy, and Onesmo is amazing. Like I've actually had a few folks have gone to see him since then. He runs quite a practice, and then we went on safari afterwards.
What
you do.
fun!
One does, yeah. Nice.
Yeah, who was the organizer?
I'd have to go look up.
Oh, I'd
his
love to
exact
find
name
out.
again, but it's like a Tanzanian adventures type thing. But I
man.
certainly can.
Okay, Lisa and I are going to do this for sure. That sounds great.
There are more stories. If you want stories of Kilimanjaro, we could talk about it because I really probably arguably shouldn't have been there. Like the other porters there was a betting pool on me when I was going to tap out. Each day I made it to a camp. Some people are cheering and some people are crying.
On a spit or on his feet. We'll see.
We went on a bicycle ride in Corsica, and I found out at the end that the leaders were betting on whether I'd make it. Like how far, and they thought I was having a heart attack the whole way. Okay, maybe I should.
Well, that was basically me. They didn't expect me to. The only guy who expected me to summit was John, my guide, and he pretty much hauled me over a couple of those rocks.
Okay. Wow. We're just going to cut that whole part out, and we're just going to stop at when I summited Kilimanjaro. I love that.
Yeah, it's a good line.
That's a great line.
Yeah.
What was the Kilimanjaro doing in your pajamas? No, that's another story entirely. Let's talk AI. By the way, that's the kind of line an AI would come up with.
Yeah, exactly. And then say, I wouldn't have said it if you weren't such a bad person. Wait, what?
The stories of the past week, I got to say, in my opinion, the real problem here is that journalists want to anthropomorphize this AI. And so
I'm glad you said journalists because the real problem from my perspective is literally journalists.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're driving it crazy. Like they're poking at it until it says something nonsensical. Because it's not a thing. It's not
going in a different direction. Okay, hold on.
Well, here's my opinion. It's not sentient. Yeah. It's autocorrect. No. Spicy autocorrect, somebody said. And it's just predictive and it's going. And if you drive it long enough, it starts to spout nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but okay.
Grammatically correct nonsense, but nonsense. These journalists just wanted it to spout nonsense.
It's stupidity on both sides when it comes to journalists. So I don't know how many Microsoft events Richard and or I have been to in our lives. Let's say it's been a lot. And so for us to show up at some Microsoft event and then walk out of it like little girls screaming, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe it. The singularity's here," is the most immature, unsophisticated response you could possibly have to anything. And that's what we saw. And the thing that comes out after the fact is go back and watch the tape on the Microsoft thing. That thing made more mistakes than the Google demo did.
Yeah.
But the Google demo for some reason.
Yeah.
That was all the talk.
That's because there wasn't much of a demo from Google. I mean, Google really didn't go very far.
Give it more time. I'm sure it could screw it up more.
Yeah, it could screw it up but a lot better.
Kevin Roos of New York Times was so blown away by this initial thing that he declared he was switching to Bing at the time. And I was like, no, you're not. And then a week later, he writes, "A week later, I've changed my mind."
Oh, no, I'm not.
I'm still fascinated by this.
Wrong both ways, right?
Deeply unsettled, even frightened by this AI's emergent abilities.
This is anthropomorphizing things.
Yeah.
This is, I expect better from these people.
Simultaneously giddy and skeptical.
I've had very intelligent friends of mine talking this way. And I'm like, listen, are you threatened when a parrot tells you you're ugly?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, parrot is arguably, not even arguably, is more sentient.
Oh, absolutely.
Steve Gibson said this yesterday.
It can actually feed itself.
Yes. He said when a parrot says Polly wants a cracker, it's actually thinking. But
if I say this, I might get a cracker.
Leo mentioned Ben Thompson, who I think is one of the most
over the top. He went
incredible
he lost his
commentators
mind.
in our industry. Lost his mind.
Yeah.
Just lost his
everybody
mind.
lost their minds in this one.
But
That's
the
not
problem.
everyone.
Number one is why are you having philosophical existential debates with a piece of software? It's a search tool. Stop it.
I know. It's just, so anyway, there's that bit of embarrassment. I also, and I feel like I said this on day one, this is Bing, right? Like, shouldn't that have been the level set on this? Like, I just, whatever. So in the past week, because I guess we're doing this week by week now, right? It's been really interesting watching Microsoft's response to all this. It is clear to me that they are almost giddy with the attention that they're getting over a product. Like I think someone that Richard might have said earlier, we just spent 20 years ignoring, and now it has gotten more attention in the past week or two or three, whatever it's been, than it has in its entire existence. Like all of a sudden it's a going concern, And there's been a lot of overreaction inside and outside of Microsoft. They, after this thing started going off the rails after 2 long conversations, Microsoft said, "Well, fine, we'll just let's lower the, we'll lower the amount of time you can talk to this thing at a time, and we won't let the crazy come out. It's like this morning I described this to Brad as like you're sitting next to someone at a bar who's pounding drinks. The conversation is fantastic in the beginning, but then it gets really weird, and eventually you should just get up and leave. You don't just keep talking to these people, and you certainly don't make decisions based on anything they tell you at this point. And that's kind of what Bing AI is like to me.
I did have a chance to talk to a couple of folks on the inside of Microsoft, like what the heck is going on, and they talk about this thing called the token cache. Right. So, I mean, each time this is about how we simulate context. And I'm using that word very deliberately because no intelligence, right? It is simulating context by taking what you previously said and it previously responded and tokenizing it so that it can include it in its subsequent responses.
We are so easily duped.
Yeah. And the token cache is only so big.
Let me give you an example that actually verifies what you just, or is an example of what you just said. Last week on the show, I did a very small demo where I used Notion AI to say something, what would be some interesting topics for a Microsoft podcast. And reading through its response, other than the, overwriting like a kid would do in high school, I could see that it was very clearly taking information from my own notes. It was just stealing from me right there.
Sure. Well,
so I showed this to my wife and I said, let's see what it does when it has no prompting whatsoever. Absolutely worthless. It's absolutely worthless. Mm-hmm. And in that case, it was something like, what are some fun things to do in Mexico City? And it's like, Mexico City is a history, is rich in history and culture, and there's great places to eat, and you should be sure to explore the city streets. And it was like, it just came up with nothing. It was just nonsense.
Which again, it's just a search engine. It's going and finding a page that seemed to fit what you were saying.
Right.
I also had the chance to read Jordi Ribas's latest commentary on that. And he's one of the VPs in the AI big space. And he's finally sort of described how they built this thing. And it's like, they were not rushing this. They've been working on this for quite some time. The question is, why did they release it?
Yeah, that is the question. Yep.
And I think it's the 100 million users.
By the way, I don't think you've ever said anything in your life that is more right than that. That is absolutely correct. I mean, the numbers on Bing are so small, and we can latch on to this success and ride this, and how much 1%, 2% share
it's all it takes
means to them. Yeah, it's astonishing.
Yeah, and anytime you can poke. In some respects, it's just like poking Google is a good day.
Yeah. And it was a perfect storm for them, too, because Google just coughed up a hairball at exactly the right time.
But they're both hairballs. The question is what happens next, and that's really my concern. The correct thing to happen now is that one or the other of them blinks and says, hey, this is quite ready for a lifetime. I'm going to take that down. And then the other one will immediately. So now there's probably going to be a stare-off to say who's going to blink first. And in some ways, Google has the least to lose.
Yeah, Microsoft's talking like they're not going to do that. That's my fear.
You don't think these will get better?
No, the data set's not that good in the first place. I mean, that's the essential problem.
I think
it's too expensive for it to do it and to grow it in real time. You can't keep.
Well, more salient, you did this as a PR play, and now it's creating bad PR.
Yeah,
what do you do?
Take it down.
By the way, that might play into the 100 million thing as well.
Yeah. Well,
this thing can't. Microsoft says, we improve this thing using the information we glean from what people are doing, searching and blah, 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 whatever. There aren't that many people doing that on Bing. Mm-hmm. This is bringing more people to the service. They may have, pragmatically is the wrong word, but they may have gone live with this thing specifically to feed it information and habits and behaviors.
Which is always useful. And if you do try and use it as a search tool, sometimes it gets reasonable results.
So I will
what reminds me of
what I said to a commenter on my website, that the bar should be higher for search results than sometimes
you might be 100%. I agree.
But it never has been.
No, right? I agree with you. Yeah.
The Google's vulnerable because its search has gotten quite poor.
It's gotten bad.
That's right. It's been insurtified. Yeah. Absolutely true.
So it reminds me of IBM's Watson, which when it was released got a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It won Jeopardy, right? And
did it was this different from the chess playing?
Yeah, this is a different one. But related. Deep Blue was also from IBM.
was derived from Deep Blue.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Deep Blue won the same way Watson won Jeopardy, which is by cleverly tailoring the algorithm for the exact purpose it was.
The pruned decision tree.
Right.
And
so it was trained to beat
have
Kasparov.
an n over n-1 problem. As soon as the data set gets too big, they tip over.
Right. So nevertheless, great success. This is the last AI spring, by the way. In the long run, Watson, even though despite lots of advertising and IBM really pushing it, they discontinued it because I mean, for a while there were stories about how it does better than a radiologist reading X-rays. No, it turned out not. And then now it's gone. And I think that's kind of. Do you think it's going to be like that, or is this yet another one of those?
I don't think it goes away. In fact, I think if what will happen is we just won't talk about it anymore because these capabilities will just be everywhere. You know,
only if it works. You only talk about it when it breaks, right?
Yeah.
And now, again, artificial intelligence is how you describe a technology that doesn't work. When it does work, it gets a new name, right? We'll start calling them large language models.
Yeah.
But I would argue the counter to when are these two going to take this thing down is who's going to double down. And the logical one in that case is Google.
Yeah.
It makes Google, the thing to Google now is to release a different AI related product. A music generator, or a next generation.
I think they already did that.
But I would think something different.
Google Research released a music generator, and which is terrible. It's so bad, it's awful.
Yeah, I that was, and the headlines for that were off the charts too. It was like, this is going to be the best music you've ever.
We've all read a lot of sci-fi, and this is like VR, something the metaverse. We're all like so primed for, and turns out to be a lot harder to do.
Yeah, sure. And we want science fiction to come true,
right? And we don't have flying cars either, I might add.
Yeah,
right.
So, but I do think, I think you're right, Richard. That there's applications for this, and you just rename it, and you're going to see it slowly seep into our day-to-day life.
Spotify today released an AI-based, again, everything's AI-based, playlist creation tool. You feed it up to 30 artists and it creates music based on the music you like, which is kind of what we've been doing with music services since there have been music services. Just like we've been doing things like spell checking, grammar checking, and word processors since there have been those products, but now it's always AI. I think the reason they don't call this stuff machine learning or large language models or whatever is that AI is something that everyone both understands and completely does not understand. As a term, it's just a familiar term, and people are like, oh yeah.
It's marketing,
supercomputers,
But okay, it's marketing. I mean, we've had this conversation before. There's algorithms that are labeled AI, and there's actual machine learning, and there's actual, I won't say AI, but there's actual machine learning where the machine makes its own rules.
Really pedantic people say, well, this is an AI. Well, this is an AI. Yeah, okay, whatever.
There's a difference between a program that a person wrote and a program that the computer generated on its own. And that would be, to me, that's the dividing line.
On its own is a bit of a stretch, right? Because that's the point of
no, AlphaGo taught itself how to play chess.
Right.
All they gave it was the rules. It taught itself how to play chess and became the best chess playing computer ever. Much better than a human in a matter of hours by playing billions of games against itself. Sure. That to me is machine learning.
It proved the 10,000 hour thing.
Well, the 10 billion hour thing.
You got it. But if you keep following the Alpha project, then you get into the interesting stuff like playing chess, playing Go, whatever. They're great demos. But AlphaFold's actually important.
Right.
And that's that same. And we're now going to take years to validate what AlphaFold produced in its last round of tests, because our current system for doing protein folding is just not as sophisticated.
Perfect example.
Yeah, but it's also a very rare example, Leo. Like to actually have built software that has generated results that very likely are right, and we don't know how they generate them. They're going to be difficult to prove and have massive consequences if they are right.
Right.
Honestly, the biggest, to me, part of this story is an indictment of modern journalism. It's driven by link bait. It's driven by clicks.
But it's driven by, this is like the conversation we had around the financial impact of COVID versus post-COVID and how these companies should have known better. I don't understand that. And then you get journalists who should know better go into a room and like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And instead of using their brains and thinking for, it's so disappointing when people who should know better don't,
I would submit they know better, but there's such pressure to generate views that they pander.
Yeah, the tough part is it is actually profitable.
It's look, this is what happened to network news. Look at your local news. It's profitable. And ultimately these are all profit institutions. This is why Twit is great, because we don't want any profit. We can't make money to save our lives. So you're not going to hear that link bait here.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's sort of, yeah, right. Yeah.
No, actually, this is serious. This is an advantage we have because there's no SEO in anything that we do.
Right.
You have to go out, find the podcast, download it, listen to something that's going to go at least 2 hours to hear it. There's no link bait that can make you listen to this show.
Right.
So there's no incentive for us to write a headline that says, you won't believe what Bing did now.
Yep. And then you're going to make like a graphic for YouTube where we're all like this, like.
Yeah, by the way, that's the problem with YouTube. Exactly.
Those stupid graphics.
Yeah, that's the big problem with YouTube. It's all link bait.
It's
all link bait. But the success of YouTube is pushing everybody else in that direction. You don't think The Verge is looking at YouTube going, we got to do more of that?
Sure.
So, I mean, this is an indictment more of and not even of journalism, of our society. We are ADD. We just want, what's next? What's the next thing? I'm seeing now on my Amazon Echo, you won't believe this 10-year-old sports writer. It's like,
he's almost as good as AI.
Yeah, they got tired of the AI story writing sports, right? So now they got a 10-year-old. Anyway, but I think that's our job is to say what is really going on here and what is it going to look like next year and in 5 years and in 10 years. And that's where I just like being on the right side
of history. You can't always be right, but it's, to me, the journalism thing is the tough thing for it. And because I'm sort of in this area, I always have problems with this, but I've been covering Microsoft for almost 30 years. And my initial reaction remains the same today as it was when it first happened, which is, this is Bing, right? Like, I mean,
well, the other way to look at this is the best thing about pessimism is you're usually right and occasionally pleasantly surprised.
Dvorak taught me that. No one ever wants a mouse. The problem is when you're spectacularly wrong, people do remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So try not to be spectacularly wrong. Just a little wrong.
Goes with the territory.
So there's something here, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not what you think it is.
We've raised all the same issues that I have nothing new to add. I still question them releasing it when they did. I think we are getting toward the reasons. I don't think what Microsoft has done here is any better or worse than anything you're going to see anywhere else, whether it's Google or anywhere else. I think, unfortunately, or whatever, the realistic outcome here is AI is already becoming part of everything. It just is. Spotify's doing it. Notion's doing it. Opera's doing it. Microsoft's going to do it. It's going to be everywhere. This is it. We're going to be assisted by something that they're going to market as AI. You can call it, whatever. It is what it is, but it is like everything else in tech. There are definitely going to be benefits. And all those people, like I keep using the same example, who struggle to make a PowerPoint presentation, they're going to have a lot of help with that stuff. And honestly, it's kind of hard to complain about that.
No,
unless, of course, you're a PowerPoint master and you're looking at all these idiots who have no idea what they're doing. And, so there's kind of, pros and cons of everything.
Well, and back to that line about this is the NFT for cloud, right? NFT is about selling crypto. Yeah. All of these large language models are about selling cloud.
Sure.
And so
that's
what
why
actually
Microsoft
ends
put it
it?
out.
Yeah. When your customer is unhappy and it's costing you a lot of money, then you'll give it up.
Is this truly an example of there is no such thing as bad press?
Absolutely. Especially when bad press looks like good press, right? I was poorly written articles that are very positive.
Yeah.
And incorrect.
Right.
The great thing about writing bad
Bing.
stories in the first place is you get to do it twice. Once when you did it wrong, and once when you try and correct it.
Yeah, so Bing insults a journalist and they become upset. And now it's like, wow, that thing must be pretty sophisticated to have upset that guy. It's like, not exactly, but okay.
Upset for the clicks.
Yeah. Right. All right. Well, our obligatory AI section is now complete.
Well, okay, one more thing, which is yesterday the Supreme Court heard arguments in Gonzalez versus Google, and a lot of what it was about was algorithms.
Right.
And amazingly, I thought, the justices seem to understand that you have to have algorithms, that everything's an algorithm. I was really impressed. Kavanaugh, who was prepared to, Mr. I like beer, actually was pretty savvy. And they said, well, you don't have search without algorithms. You don't have anything without algorithms.
Right.
They kind of went down a rabbit hole trying to figure out who creates thumbnails on YouTube. Sure. And I'm listening to this and yelling at the Supreme Court the whole time. But they essentially understood. And really, algorithms, especially self-improving algorithms, kind of are AI, right? I mean, Google gets better and better because it gets more input about what you click. And that doesn't need a human to intervene. PageRank doesn't need a human. It's collecting signals.
Mm-hmm. It also has human intervention routinely. We call it advertising.
Not only that, I remember at the very early days before they took advertising, Sergey Brin telling me, every day, I'm dimly remembering this. So it roughly was like, I go down in the basement at Google and I look at the end of the printouts to see
the tape's coming out of the glass ball.
Yeah, I want to look at the end of the printouts to see what we have to fix, and then we tune the code a little bit, and then it goes on. There's
you can
always
see why they brought him back to figure out this AI thing, because that guy is still totally living in the future.
Sergey's back down in the basement looking at the printouts, and I think it's about time.
Boy. Yep.
All right, enough about that. But I do, and we're going to talk. I should mention the next show this week in Google. We've got Kathy Gellis on, who was in the Supreme Court today and yesterday for those arguments.
Oh, nice.
She had written an amicus brief on behalf of Tech Dirt for Gonzalez. So, by the way, in favor of Google, not against Google. She will have a lawyer's point of view on all of this
for the entire industry, right?
Oh,
it's
for us.
This is the rare case of. It's kind of it's a weird transposition. Like you've got the biggest companies on earth have so much responsibility and too much power, but are they responsible for everything that every single person writes and happens to go out through their service?
And furthermore, it's not just about the biggest companies. It's about our chat room. It's about our Discord. It's about our forums and your forums and your comments.
No, it's a weird. You go after the big guys, right? I mean, that's how it.
I know. Yeah,
that's how it happens. But
Google and Facebook can handle, and Microsoft can handle any adverse effect of this.
Right, but
we can't.
Right.
I'll take it all. I'll have to take it all down if I could get sued for anything that is said on my site, or anytime I take something down because of what's said, I can get sued. There's no site.
Yeah,
but this isn't even a new debate.
Seem to be.
This is the common carrier debate.
Right.
Yes, that's right.
Except for the fact, and this is where you get back to the algorithm parts, except for the fact that, true common carriers have no input into what is transmitted. And these services shape what you see.
Actually, this is a huge problem because, Facebook specifically feeds you nonsense and does it to get clicks and they're an active participant.
Well, and that's why the conversation is about the algorithm. But you can't cut the baby in half without killing the baby. You can't say, well, let's take out algorithms and preserve Section 230. Then there's no internet.
Yeah, I think the prosecution in this case has overreached because exactly that, turning it into a defense of the internet will always win you the day.
Yep.
The real thing here is this, that you are responsible.
Well, it's almost intent. In other words, are you a blind carrier of other people's thoughts, or are you participating actively to make money?
Yeah,
which is what Facebook is doing for sure.
And so, I mean, the answer here might be transparency in the algorithm.
Right.
right? I mean, I've laughed for ages. Like, Facebook could have been the best source of news ever if you had shown the source of every bit of data that you're bringing in and who's paying for it and so forth, so that you effectively did what democracy requires, which is that informed populace.
Right.
You would be a benefit to society and perhaps also be profitable.
And
the problem
speaking
is
of
that outrage
fiction,
is more
Richard,
profitable.
that would be quite a world, wouldn't it?
But I would also point out, Bing AI does provide footnotes to everything it says.
Yeah.
That while not adequate, are at least an effort towards showing sourcing.
Sure. And maybe a reaction to what's come before them, right? The things we were just describing. You know, that's fine. I mean, it's fine.
It's not fine. We need to be better.
Yeah.
I'm
well, that's what I meant by fine.
I'm
Fine
glad
is not the same as good or ideal. It's, it's fine. It's a step. It's a step.
We're all surprised that the prosecution hasn't duped the Supreme Court.
Yes.
That the Supreme Court is at least
that's exactly right.
Honestly, they did.
Yes.
Because there is no merit in this case at all. Why would you blame YouTube for ISIS killing your daughter if there's no connection? They're not even asserting a connection. So, and I feel for
but now the
Gonzalez
ruling
family.
will serve to protect the internet ultimately.
Well, so that's
the other
question.
side of this.
And this is the first question I'm going to ask Kathy Gellis is, why the Supreme Court grant certiorari in this? They should not have been reviewing this case. It's not a good case. So why are they reviewing it? And that's what I think scares everybody. Did some of the justices see this as an opportunity to kill 230? Maybe, I don't know.
Yep.
So far in the arguments,
that's where they're headed. Thank God. But
you can never tell with the arguments.
That's why I've been paying attention to it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, moving right along, because I know you really care about Microsoft 365.
Well, thank you. I do.
And Teams.
So,
let's talk Teams.
Well, The Verge has reported, and I can confirm that Microsoft in March is going to release something they're calling Teams 2.0. It is moving off of whatever Electron nightmare they're on and onto React instead. So it's a lot less RAM, a lot less CPU, so a lot better battery life, et cetera, et cetera. That's pretty much 100% of what I know about it. So personally, and I don't think The Verge goes into too much more detail, but I think we could all agree on two things when it comes to Teams. Probably the most popular platform Microsoft has created in a long, long time. And the client is the biggest pig of a disaster and needs to be overhauled to be more efficient. So this is a good thing.
Trying to make a new sovereign app, trying to displace Outlook, which is really what you're trying to do here.
Yeah.
To be the first place you look is not an easy thing.
Yep.
I am confused as to why this was necessary.
Wait a minute.
Microsoft owns Electron. It's part of GitHub, for crying out loud. Like, why?
Right.
Why? I expected the moment that acquisition went through, it's like the Windows team is going to sit with the Electron team, and Electron's going to get great.
Yep.
And everybody will benefit. And the fact that didn't happen, that's an interesting story. Like, what the heck is the problem with fixing Electron?
I'll throw something that won't be too comfortable for a lot of people, because React comes from Facebook, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And it might just be that React is just superior.
Apparently.
It's also got to be a legacy thing, right?
But a legacy to Electron? It's not that old.
No, but a lot of programs use Electron, non-Microsoft.
Well, obviously the problem with Electron is that you're basically shipping the web browser product, right? So I think we talked about this last week, but this notion that I already have Brave with 43 tabs open. What I don't need is another rendition of it in Teams with another 43 tabs or its equivalent. Yeah,
and maybe it's not in Microsoft's best interest to fix Electron because it makes everybody else's apps slower.
Right.
While
they move to React.
Right.
So if they do a React JavaScript version, this is not Electron. This is something different.
That's right.
And better
They're changing
and faster.
the underpinnings.
Yeah. Right. Lightweight. And this is important because Teams is the center of work for so many people now, 270 million or whatever it is. And like Richard kind of implied, there is essentially the new Outlook. It's Outlook was always famous because it would be the first thing you started with in a workday and the last thing you left on. And they created like this, your today view and all this stuff. And it was the center of your universe. It was the way you communicated with the people you worked with. You kept your calendar and so forth, all your contacts. And I can't believe they haven't added email to Teams. It's like the one thing. It's like, just do it and get rid of Outlook,
Yeah.
Microsoft is smart in this case. I think they knew going into this that there was a younger generation of people that would react, pardon the pun, if you will, to a chat-based workplace communication, collaboration client, and that there was this old school group that basically just has to die and that will never give up Outlook. And so, they kind of promoted both of these things side by side. And I'm sure there are still many, many more Outlook users than there are Teams users, but Teams is a force of nature. It's an application platform. I mean, it's humongous.
Yeah. I get reached out. When I get reached out to Microsoft people, I know what age bracket they're in by what tool they use to reach out.
Exactly right.
And isn't it the case that almost everybody's using webmail now? I mean, who's using clients?
I don't know. I don't know.
I
would
still
say
use Outlook, and I feel alone.
You are old and alone. Even better.
I was going to say, I don't mean to say you should feel alone, but I don't mean it like that. But yeah, I mean,
I would say anybody under 35 is just using webmail, and most people over 35 are using
barely.
webmail.
Then I mean,
or they're not using mail
kids
at all.
Go kicking and screaming into it because the work requires it. But
is mail itself kind of outmoded? The idea of email.
Yeah.
Because they use chat instead, right? They use.
Well, it's like asking, is the telegraph outmoded? I don't know. Sometimes I like
we
to
still
send
get
a
a telegram
and not get an answer for 10 more days. I don't know. Like it still works.
I used to. There were a few things that were burrs under the saddle during the radio show.
Yeah.
The guy calling in said, my AOL mail has stopped working. Is one.
Sure.
But
did you recommend that he goes to Outlook Express?
Honestly,
Hotmail.
Anytime somebody had a problem with Outlook, it was like, oh God, please no.
It's like I use Hotmail and I spell it capital H, capital T, capital M, capital L, because that's where the name comes from.
Did Hotmail invent web email interfaces? I think they did. Right?
Pretty much.
That was the
very first.
Maybe they were one of the early ones. Yeah. And we got to, it's so long ago, people forget this. Microsoft bought this company, right? This was a startup.
They still own the domain. I still have folks that have
Hotmail.com.
My primary email address is Hotmail.
And it took them a long time to move it to Azure, right? I mean, for a long time, Hotmail was running.
Well, to Exchange or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it was on
Amazon.
Actually, it took them a long time just to move it to Windows. It was on FreeBSD for a long time.
That's right. It was on FreeBSD.
In the beginning, right? I mean, there were a lot of transitions for this product over the years.
So in business, people still use email clients. But even here, we're a Google Workspace house, right? So all our email is on Gmail.
Right.
You could use a client.
If you're full in M365 and you send out a calendar invite from Outlook, it will make it into a Teams invite automatically. Like you have to fight to stop that.
That tells you something right there.
Yeah.
That completely tells you their strategy.
Telling that in the Gmail client, there's the whatever they call it this year, Google Meet or whatever is a primary UI in there. I don't use Outlook, the desktop client anymore. I really haven't ever, I guess, but I don't know that that's the case. But like I said, I'm really surprised email is not like a tab in Teams. Just bring it in.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference at this point?
Make it a web tab. Oh,
I already have a calendar
anymore.
The Teams calendar is pretty nice.
But it might make Teams fat and slow.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we wouldn't want that.
Goodness.
Well,
hey, what was the deal? I was seeing a lot of messages about Outlook.com turning off its spam protection for a while.
Yeah, so that has passed.
Okay. It was brief.
Was it? Yeah, they had a day or two where it appeared the spam filter just went south and stopped working.
This is where I missed Twitter, because I'm sure there was a lot of traffic on Twitter.
Oh, you missed.
Even Mastodon had quite a bit of traffic, but I bet Twitter was.
Let's just say that the only thing worse than Outlook.com is Outlook.com without a working spam filter.
So did the spam filter retroactively get rid of that spam, or is it still sitting in your inbox?
No, I don't know about that. I don't know.
Probably
I don't
still
know
sitting
what it
in
did.
your inbox, I would guess.
I do know that it was fixed, and to my knowledge, Microsoft has not publicly addressed this issue, but it was somewhere between a day and two that it was off.
Just a moment for regular people to find out how horrible the internet still really is.
They should do this yearly. They should have a yearly no spam filtering
no
day.
filter day.
Yeah, just so you know what you're missing. or
you
not.
can do the same thing on your phone. Instead of using like a major service like Verizon or T-Mobile, like just move to Mint Mobile and then see what kind of like text messages you start getting. It's hilarious.
It's amazing.
Mint Mobile is a
Random
sponsor,
phones.
Paul. Don't diss them too much.
I love Mint Mobile, but I mean, they don't have any spam.
They don't do
protection,
the
yeah. It's one of the-
Oh, I remember that when I first got my Mint Mobile phone. I guess the phone number was owned previously by an avid.
Every phone number has been owned previously.
Yeah, well, they all
right?
are, but this one was owned by an avid Trump supporter, and I was getting 20 or 30 messages a day asking for money, not just from Trump, from all sorts of sources, QAnon stuff, all kinds of crazy stuff. And then interspersed in it was a regular message of, you have defaulted on your student loans.
Right. I keep getting PayPal requests via text message. Those are entertaining. I owe a guy named Ernesto $300.
I think Mint may have fixed this because Swamp Rat's saying he doesn't get any spam messages on his Mint Mobile. They're riding on T-Mobile. They could use the same. You know what's changed? I think that they don't. Okay. What has changed, I think, with Stir and Shaken is a lot of these spammers. It's no longer.
Oh, by the way, this person, if he's using a Pixel phone, Pixel in
they do the phone, the hardware
Android,
do it
actually has spam filtering built in. If you have the worst combination is an iPhone because they do nothing, with Mint because they do nothing. So those two together, if you want to see what spam looks like, put an iPhone on Mint.
That's what it was, an iPhone SE on Mint Mobile. But this was 3, 4, 5 years ago.
To the wide world of the internet. Yep. It's just perfect.
Swamp Rat's on Android, Motorola G Power.
Yeah. Okay. I'm
Maybe
not sure where the
G-Power's
line
doing that.
between Pixel and Android ends with regards to spam and stuff like that. I know the Pixel has enhanced capabilities, but
Google does a lot in there.
Google probably does some good stuff on Android, just Android proper. So.
Right. Okay. Let's move right along here.
Yes.
I've lost track of where we were. I went to my Outlook just to see if I had any spam, and it was all from Microsoft.
Well, actually, so we have a dev section here. Since Richard is here, this is an interesting opportunity. Yeah. You probably knew about a bunch of this stuff ahead of time, bastard. So
there's previews, man. Like you see them all the time. It's not like I'm calling anybody.
I see. All right. Well,
Visual Studio 2022 is here.
Well, 2022 version 17.5.
Why don't they just call it 2023? Am I asking too much?
Yeah, you're asking. They don't really change the version number, I don't know, every 2-3 years.
2-3 years. Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be probably a 24.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So it's going to be 2022 for a while.
So version 17.5 is probably just the proper version.
But this is a big update, right? This is not a little...
This one's a big update.
Upgrade.
I haven't... Yeah. And it depends on what you're doing, but I would say... AI-powered suggestions, am I right?
Oh,
actually, that one's kind of interesting because it's a little bit like Copilot. As you're writing code, it will actually watch you as you keep making edits to something and say, hey, are you trying to do this?
Oh,
I'm very curious.
This is the new thing is autofill, or what do they call it?
IntelliSense.
Sense.
Or
but using Copilot.
IntelliCode.
Using Copilot. So like you start typing something.
Well, it's actually watching. In other words, you're working on, let's say you're doing some kind of iteration or whatever. And like you don't quite get it right. And it will just pop up a little, preview window above what you're doing and say, hey, did you
you're calling a null pointer. Do you really mean to be doing that?
Yeah.
That actually is a good idea.
I think
this is something the editor has always been parsing your code as you type.
It's a linter.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Well, it's a compiler as a service. Like your line of code is full of squiggles.
It does auto. You object dot, and then it will list all of the properties.
That's just autocomplete. Yeah,
that's IntelliSense.
Right.
But this IntelliCode part is starting to anticipate this is what you intend to do.
That's interesting. Is it good?
Mm-hmm. It's at the interesting phase right now.
Yeah.
I'm very curious. You don't have to take it. It's same you don't have to take IntelliSense.
No, you just hit tab and keep going.
Yeah.
The big one for me, and is something I've certainly talked about on .NET Rocks with various folks, is you can still write C# like it's C# 2. And it's now C# 11. So the real sense I've gotten is and this is what I've mostly modernized is let's try writing code like it's 2005 and see if the things like, hey, there's some link here, like there are string literals now. Like you don't have to do this anymore.
I wonder if it's if that does anything to obfuscate what you're trying to do. Like I sometimes I find these modern code constructs to be a little harder to read because I'm just I'm not a professional developer for one thing. So I'm not completely up on all the changes that have occurred in any language or C#.
Well, Link is remarkably capable of obscuring code, right?
Yeah.
The same way you can write a SQL query in a way that's just like, good luck, figure out what this does.
Yep. No, even actually, I would say even before this, it would want to format blocks of code in a certain way. It actually does this all the time. In fact, it does this in the XAML editor and it does this in the C# code editor. And it's like, no, I want it like this, you know? And I wish there was a little setting where I could say, stop telling me this. I like the way I write it, know?
I want my code the way I want my code. Back off.
Yeah. Yep. Because you can tab your way through like a line of XAML and it will like and spit it out over 5 lines. Like, no, I want to be able to read most of this on one page if I can.
Yeah.
XAML can be very verbose, Anyway,
I've got wide screens, but not too tall. So give me long lines.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. That's exactly right. Yep. Yeah. No, different people, different styles. Like I get that. It's fine. But it'd be kind of neat if there was like a coding style option, like you could choose like how you like those things to be formatted. That's actually a really good idea.
And to me, 17.5 is about the native ARM64 stuff. Like
that's right. Yeah. So the original release was 2022 was the first to support ARM64 natively. And then if I understand this correctly, this includes a native ARM64 Clang tool set, but only in LLVM.
Yeah.
So basically native compilation on ARM64. So does that mean that compilation previously was emulated x64?
Yes.
Or actually x86 probably.
Possibly. I don't know. Sure. There's been a push for strictly ARM64 for a while.
Yeah.
But how the instruction sets actually map out is another problem entirely. Again, we're largely insulated from all this, but the Clang tool set is more about it knows how to poke into LLVM properly. So which means essentially run anywhere, including, by the way, into WebAssembly.
Ooh.
So WebAssembly uses LLVM as a loader. So
LLVM is a miracle of modern technology.
Yeah, when you talk about what
it's not quite AI, but it's
what is computing really run on?
Yeah.
It really runs on LLVM.
Yeah. So tell people what that is. So Clang is the compiler, but it doesn't compile to machine code. It's a C-lang compiler. It doesn't compile to machine code. It compiles to, is it an intermediate code for LLVM?
In fact, effectively. But listen, this is what C always offered, right? This was the point. Back in if you go back to the 70s and 80s, right? It's like, hey, we've been writing an assembler. Let's take a language above this that can actually then go to multiple assembly instruction sets.
Right.
Right. This is not that different. The CLR is a higher abstraction from beyond that. But this was always important, was stop worrying about and not just the chipset, but the exact BIOS you've got, the exact microcode you've got. Like, this is where stuff fell down. What sank the BlackBerry? I had a team that was trying to build BlackBerry apps in the 90s. It depended on what ROM version you had. You had to recompile the flipping app. If you don't have this abstraction, you're constantly in pain. Your software breaks every time there's a fix in anything. And so, it's just that LLVM ended up being the leveling off of, okay, well, here's how we're going to do this after many different approaches over the years.
And it's this brilliant guy, Chris Latner, who really is kind of one of the unsung heroes of modern computing. LLVM is low-level virtual machine. So
although they say it's not that anymore, right? It's just LLVM. Right?
I don't like when acronyms go non-acronym.
Yeah, become a noun.
Yeah, right? Like CES. It's still the Consumer Electronics Show. I'm sorry.
It's not really a virtual machine. Right. You can argue whether it's low-level or not.
So
it generates this thing called intermediary representation.
Does it then get compiled further to machine code on the target platform? Yeah. Okay.
Ultimately.
So the reason maybe I'm an old timer stuck in the good old days, but Pascal.
Everyone uses Lisp.
Used to compile. In fact, that was one of the strengths of Pascal and Delphi was it would compile to a P machine.
Right.
which was a hardware independent intermediate language. But P code was always slow. I mean, that was always a disadvantage. It was like more like interpreted than compiled.
That was basic too, right? Visual Basic.
Yeah, basic was always interpreted. But
I think until VB6, I think it was.
Yeah, well, all the Visual Basics actually compiled.
Yeah.
It is now.
Just in there.
That's good.
Against their own VB runtime.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's using kind of a library, a DLL.
Which, by the way, still ships with Windows to this day.
Right.
VB runs
You see it everywhere.
600.dll.
Yeah.
Never.
You still update it every freaking month of your life through Windows Update, whether you know it or not.
It's there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is Windows a big supporter of LLVM? I always got the impression that it was kind of everything but Windows was, because don't you have CLib and stuff like that?
Yeah, Microsoft's always had their own implementations, but LLVM's been a part of the C++ tools inside Studio for forever.
Forever. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's interesting to think about Studio modernizing. Like we keep thinking about it as this old tool. Like most people, especially young developers, who look at it and go, this is like sitting down in the cockpit of 747 going, what are all these switches doing?
Right.
And I'm like, what you're actually seeing is the political architecture of Microsoft here, where every team that works on this product wants a button on the screen.
That's really true.
Right.
What I like about Visual Studio the most, because what I do mostly with it is just install it, is it configure all the workloads I want.
Yeah.
And then you get the thing up and running, and the first thing you have to do is look at there's a little red bell icon. It's like, you get two more things to install. Just do it.
Why are you asking me?
Why are you doing this? I just told you what I wanted installed. If I said yes to this, just do it. There are other releases this week in this space. The first preview version of .NET 8 has come out, and I got to tell you, this blog post is possibly 4,000 to 6,000 words long, and I understood about 17 of those words.
Really? I didn't think that post was all that long.
What I meant by that is, obviously what I'm looking for in this list is here's what's new. And there's literally a section called what's new in this release. Native AOT. Okay, I got that ahead of time compilation. Yep. Okay, good. And then it just kind of goes on from there. And I'm like, I don't quite understand what a lot of this stuff is. It's a lot of, I don't know, it's very esoteric.
I mean, they're obviously still working on .NET MAUI. Right. They are getting to they're finally getting to some features now that are making it more robust. 1.0 is always a tough version. It took them a while to get there.
Yeah, they sure did.
By the way, I wrote this new talk, this Mono to MAUI talk.
Yeah.
And by the end of writing it, I had far more empathy for why MAUI was delayed as long as it was.
So I listened to your .NET Rocks episode with the panel discussion with David Ortnow and Kendra Perkins, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think David made a joke like, we should have just started this over from scratch, And I'm going to be looking at MAUI a little more closely soon. It is, if you don't mind the subset of what's available out in the world, it's probably the easiest way to get going with WinUI 3, honestly.
Yes, without a doubt. If that's something you want to do.
I think so. You're right.
Well, and it just speaks to where things are living now. I mean, and I pressed exactly on that in the .NET Rocks episode. It's like, who's using this and how are they using it? Like, and he didn't hear about any cases where it's like, we need to be on Mac and Windows and Android and phone. It's like, it's mostly iPhone, Android.
Oh, yeah. I think the point of bringing it to the desktop is there's some minority of use cases where you might want the app on that system, and it's like this thing's a mobile app, and it's just gonna we'll make some small concessions you can run on the desktop.
Because the idea that we as developers love the idea. I want to write this once and it runs absolutely everywhere.
Yep. That's the dream.
But ultimately that means you write it once and it sucks everywhere.
That's right.
Right. So it's got to be good at something, and so if it's a customer facing thing, it's got to be good at mobile. And it can be mediocre elsewhere. Just drive people to mobile, ultimately.
Completely agree. Yeah.
Although you can't get away with not making a web client, and so the web client ends up being the desktop product.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that's the tricky bit in the Windows or Microsoft space, because Microsoft has Blazor and things that are called Blazor something, but and there's some interop there between Blazor and MAUI, which is also another interesting advantage of MAUI over.
Probably not ripe yet. Like that part's coming.
Yeah. I'm still looking into this stuff, but it's it has the feel of something that's going to be really interesting in about 2 versions.
And it's the norm. I'm on my docket is a show on Blazor United, which is part of .NET 8.
That's right.
And that speaks to this whole idea of what do I want to run on the client? What do I want to run on a server?
Blazor United is like Project Reunion for Blazor.
It's like what happened when Eastern Airlines and Western Airlines got together.
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting to see how all of that pans out. But
like
there's almost no reason to run these preview bits except for experimental purposes. .NET 7 is very good.
Yes, right. .NET 8 will be a long-term, whatever they call it.
One of the LTS.
Yeah,
long-term now meaning 3
2
years.
years or 3 years.
3 years. Yeah. It's possible it might be longer because it's getting a lot of pushback for the rapid iteration.
Yeah. So what are the other releases? 18 months? Is that?
Yeah. So, I mean, .NET 6 is the LTS version, and it'll end in November of 2024. And .NET 7, which is not the LTS, ends in like May of 2024.
Right. That's a little weird.
Yeah, it's just like this. Yeah, you do. And by the way, it's not like they burst into flames.
They support each for every 3 years.
Yeah.
So
they verse every other one for 3 years.
Yeah,
right? And they release every year.
Right. So I'm sorry, I meant the long-term version every 2 years, but supported for every. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I was. Let me see where we are in the notes before I move on to this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I'll just move on. So I've been kind of going across all these different developer topics and just examining, doing short form things. I looked at WinUI 3, for example, the Windows App SDK, and I'm always looking for answers, in the Microsoft space. And WinUI 3 is interesting. It's hard to figure out, how do I have an app, how do I add WinUI 3 to it?
Right.
That story is a nightmare. That's, it might even be impossible. Yeah. It might just be impossible.
Well, and it's because of the consolidation of the various stacks. Like you're better off going at it through Maui.
Right. And I can't imagine too many people are going to start a new project in the Windows App SDK. I feel like
no, the UWP stuff is also threatened now.
Yeah,
that he's just like, wait. I mean, there's so many.
It exists basically just to migrate developers off of UWP. I mean, it is basically UWP, but
but this
less
is
versioning.
I mean, WinUI is essentially been kicked out of Windows, and it's more like living in the SDK lands.
Yeah,
that .NET 3.1 sort of created a safe place for it to live, and then now Maui scooped it up and say, hey, let me give you a single place to reach it all.
I always I try to re-implement my little Notepad application in every environment, right? Just because it's something I understand really well, and it is humorous to me that using the default controls in the Windows App SDK that you think about an app like Notepad, of course, in Windows 11, everything's curved. And of course, WinUI 3 writes to the default controls are all curved. Everything's curved.
Yeah.
So if you have a little text box, it's, curved in the corners, like a search box would be in the start menu or whatever.
Everything's a pill now.
Everything's a pill. So that's fun. That's fun and everything. But think about Notepad, right? So you have a top of the app and you get a menu bar, and at the bottom you have a status bar or whatever. But in the middle you get this giant text box. And I can tell you what you don't want to see is curves on that text box. And yet that's the default. You can fix that, by the way. You can get rid of the curves. But
we'll blame Windows 11 for that.
Yeah. Yep. It's just the Windows 11 era we live in. Yeah. So,
but the rest of what's in .NET 8 is language esoteric. It gets pretty specific. Yeah. Pretty far down. And that's all this stuff's necessary for certain folks. Is going to make them really happy. But I wouldn't talk about them broadly.
I also listened to your episode about functional programming in C#. Is there anything related to that in .NET 8 that we know about? Or
not really. Not really. I mean, you're not seeing, a little. I mean, you're seeing more of the streaming behaviors and things that are really great in F#.
Yeah.
And listen, I got nothing but love for F#. But that is a relatively small group of folks that need those particular features and are doing well with them. But you are gradually seeing certain aspects of what makes F# great starting to appear in C# to some degree. I mean, a lot of that stuff counts on functional reentrancy, counts on immutability, stuff that's not default.
It's not part of C#. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Although, as Simon pointed out, you can program C# that way. Learning to work functionally changes the way you work in C#, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's one of the reasons to go spend some time with other languages and get some styles that are useful.
The idea of like looping on a it's not yes no, it's yes no maybe.
Yeah,
it's kind of an interesting concept.
That's just a preparation for everything's a quantum computer, I think.
Yeah. No, that's good. It's that's where I'm going to walk out the door. I'm going to be done when that happens.
It's all getting a little stranger. It's I'd been meaning to do that show for a while.
Right.
Part of it just being, polyglot is healthy, and
yeah, for sure. Yep.
And that styles matter. Like a lot of what we thought about in object orientation that was important had more to do with the fact that we had one core and only so much memory.
Sure.
And now that we have lots of cores and ridiculous amounts of memory, it's like, what's more important? Reliability.
Not polymorphism. That's weird.
Not so much.
Does OO have an impact on concurrency or?
Yes.
Okay.
It makes concurrency extremely difficult. That's why you end up with mutexes and flags.
That explains a lot, actually.
Is the epitome of like a white lab coded technology. It's let's take the simplest possible problem and make it the most complex imaginable.
In the early days, when Alan Kay first proposed it with Smalltalk, it was different than what we're doing than Java style OO.
But Smalltalk was very functional, right?
Yeah, it was about messaging really more than anything else.
Yeah,
and that's creating.
It's
immutable,
often
separate threaded.
Yeah. It's often said that the OO we got is not what Alan Kay was intending.
Let me tell you, we got the OO we deserved.
We got the OO we deserved.
Okay.
I'm glad that OOP is kind of fading.
Not
into
kind of.
Fading away.
My God, the world has walked away from that.
I look at Paul Holder, one of our great programmers in our club and a very active member of our forums, and he always does the advent of code, and he always uses objects because he's in Java, and it's very heavily
Java. Okay,
OOP. And I'm always impressed. I look at it and I go, wow, Paul.
Yeah.
That's some nice message passing. That's some nice polymorphism you got going there.
Listen, I can handle function overloading, no problem.
Yeah, that's pretty transparent. It's multiple inheritance.
Yep.
Polymorphism.
No.
Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah.
The best multi-threaded guy I knew often started his lectures with, listen, there's about 4 guys who really know how to do this, and 3 of them are lying.
Right.
No, but functional coding, on the other hand, lends itself well, does it not? Because of immutability.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so,
this is
a natural
substitution.
Right.
Stuff,
because every function is supposed to give you the same result with the same input, no matter what. There's no side effects, which is exactly what you want.
The problem with AI in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's all side effects.
It's all side effects.
Right?
Yeah, it's all side effects all the way down.
Every time you get a different answer.
Seriously, it kind of is the problem. You know?
We thought it was turtles, turned out to be side effects.
You know what? You actually, Paul, you might have hit on something, because we expect computing to be deterministic.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what AI is not.
Computers enough to know that the world of zeros and ones should be perfect and never is.
Yeah.
But there is nothing less reliable. I would say that I bet you could feed the same query to the same AI and get a different result.
Sure.
And that's built in. Not the way this is supposed to work.
Well, but I think maybe we were living in a more fuzzy time. I mean, you mentioned quantum computing. Yeah. Is the cat dead? I don't know.
Black and white.
You have to check.
Reality is a compressed JPEG.
Okay. No, but I think ultimately it may well be that von Neumann style deterministic computing is not the way forward. It's kind of the massive pipelines.
Let me ask you something. If you're using math to figure out what kind of propulsion you need to get around a sun and then have it jettison you out of the solar system,
then you need math.
I think at that point,
that should be deterministic.
I don't want that science to be behind it.
Fuzzy. That should not be fuzzy. No,
it's just just a personal preference.
It's interesting.
And we already have multiple kinds of processors designed for different workloads, right? That's the difference between a GPU and a CPU.
Right.
CPUs are inherently deterministic, even when they're running non-deterministic processes.
Right.
And scalar computers are very well suited to multicellular computation. That works well when you're going to simulate neurons and make up lies on the search engine.
Okay, you gotta give me a second here.
Well, and async await's a great example of a language construct built for an object-oriented language, but so good it showed up everywhere.
That's right. Oh my God, everywhere. It's in JavaScript. That's how you know it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very
That's a big
interesting.
there.
I love these kinds of conversations. I'm sorry we took you down that rabbit hole, ladies and gentlemen, but
That's okay.
we are emerging.
All right. So this one will make a little more high level, but it ties into what we were just talking about. So Microsoft just had a WinUI community call, which I never would normally listen to, but Raphael watched it and then he tweeted about it, and then I had to go and watch it. And basically what this team said was that they were partnering with the File Explorer team to replace XAML islands inside of, and I'll explain that in a second, inside of File Explorer with the Windows App SDK. So I was like, wait, well, what does that mean? What are you talking about? And basically, the top part of the File Explorer application, which is the tabs and the toolbar and that kind of thing, is today written to a technology called XAML Islands, which is a way to bring WinUI 3 to a legacy application, which is what File Explorer is, right? Like it's probably a C++, I don't know what it is, but it's a legacy Win32 app. This technology does not work well at all. In fact, I don't know of any successful implementations of it, other than perhaps File Explorer, which the WinUI team said they had to customize in-house to make it work properly because it was so terrible. So I find that kind of interesting. Now, the thing about bringing Windows App or WinApp SDK to this application is actually that's not possible either. There is no way to use the Windows App SDK with an existing Win32 app. So they're doing the same nonsense in-house that they were doing at XAML Islands. But I think this speaks to a problem they were having, which was they couldn't move forward with all this new UI they wanted to do. And so they're moving it onto the latest stack that they have for WinUI 3.
Yeah, I'm surprised that XAML Islands became such a fixture. It sure seemed like a temporary measure when they put it together a few years ago.
Yep. But see, the thing is, like, to my mind, I always look, I mean, I'm always looking for the simple solution. Like, to me, I should be able to have like a WPF app, right? Which is this technology that debuted back in 2006 or whatever with Windows Vista. And you use XAML to create a UI, and it's a desktop UI. And I should be able to create a XAML file that writes to, I guess, reads or writes to whatever, to WinRT or to Windows App SDK. And I should be able to plug and replace all of the little function calls out of my old XAML into my new XAML, and it should just work. And I should have a modern looking application. Yeah. And that is absolutely not possible.
Yes.
So not today.
As I recall, XAML Islands was put together in the post Win 8 fallout to build bridges between UWP and other apps.
Yep.
And now that the XAMLs are consolidating, like, it became less and less rational.
The thing the problem with it is there is no market for a developer who has an idea to create a modern app that's only going to run on Windows. Like, that market doesn't exist. No. There is a humongous market of existing apps out in the world that were written in WinForms or WPF. I'll just send it there. Or no, I should say also C++ and the Win32 API. And if you could give these guys a way to create a new front-end UI for all of the windows that they have in their application, do the back-end plugging into their already pre-existing functions, or event handlers, whatever, that would be a wonderful thing to give people.
Well, and you remember there was that wave of tooling in the late in 2010, 2011-ish, that was all about wrapping up old Win32 apps and packaging them to be other things so they could be pushed into the store. And that kind of faded away.
Right.
But that's also the time of XAML Islands, right? That was a modernization strategy for Win32 apps.
But it just doesn't, I mean, look, the WinApp SDK is whatever it is. It's UWP is what it is. But, and Maui is whatever it is. And those things are fine. But what I think what the world really needs is what I described earlier. There's all these code bases out there. I want this thing to look normal and modern on Windows 11.
Right.
I don't understand why that's so hard.
Yeah, because there's dependencies in code that are very old, right? So, I mean, I've been watching things like the forms recognizer and saying, how long before you can point that at a WinForms app and spit out a Power Platform app?
How long is it before you can point a GUI tool at WinAppSDK XAML and have it actually show you a preview what the thing's going to look like?
Yeah, I know. Now you're just talking crazy talk, Mr. Thoreau.
Okay. Now, I have to say, I like writing code to create UI. Like, I like XAML. And I think a lot of people.
And the only reason you ever question that is because there is the WinForms designer. But
Right.
but it's important to remember the WinForms designer is the anomaly. It hasn't worked for anything else anywhere else ever.
Yeah.
It never worked for WPF. It doesn't work for
exists
Maui.
for
it didn't work for
WPF,
web.
but anyone who
but it's
writes
not
in
usable.
WPF gets rid of it.
They were trying to create a miracle. It failed. And they left it in the box so you can know they failed.
That's great.
But
the first thing you do is turn it off.
But that designer, which really goes, I mean, literally back to the early 90s, right? To Gates's vision
But this
of a safe way to build Windows apps.
You know?
It did. But they tried, that's also that was the claim of Front Page, and look what it made. It's hard to generate code that isn't horrible.
Well, especially when you don't know what the resolution or scaling of any display is and blah, blah. It is, it gets harder as things, as UIs improve, it gets harder and harder.
And this, when they wanted to do the high DPI version of WinForms, they did it for .NET 3.1 in the WinSDKs. And they said it's not going to be pixel perfect, and we're not going to let you just import it. You have to jump through some hoops so that you look at your screens, because pixel perfect is impossible.
Yeah. Still the dream.
Yeah. You know what? Like I said, it's going to be easier to redo those apps in a new tool set.
I know, but just really not. It's just such a terrible message.
If it's an internal app bound to Windows machines, it probably should be a Power Platform app. And I'm a heretic for saying that. But
that's interesting.
The way that thing's licensed, what it's designed to do, it's a better answer. And the question now is, do you spend the time building an importer? And if you ever watched the Forms Recognizer do its thing on paper forms, it'll freak you out. It's reading that form, pulling out name value pairs. It doesn't take that much. That's not much of a leap to simply say, now aim that at a WinForms screen. If I literally took pictures of all of the screens in a WinForms app, printed them out on paper, and fed them to the Forms Recognizer, I'd be in the same place.
Well, I know that there's WPF and WinForms are now kind of community supported. I suppose it's never going to happen, but maybe I don't know. There must be some modernization efforts occurring somewhere.
They're not really community supported. They are part of the WinSDK. There are folks still working on it, but the energy's in Maui, for better or worse. And if I'm wearing my enterprise architect hat and the team wants to is greenfielding, super rare. Today's a tough day to call that because Maui's not right.
It's not. It's immature. Everything else doesn't have all the same level of control support that you get across these other things.
Yes,
on Windows.
And so, if it was really about if it's Windows, we're probably going to keep building websites. Maybe in Angular, maybe React. That's probably what we're going to do.
That's what Microsoft's doing. Maybe that should be a clue to everyone.
Yeah,
right. Although the built-in apps in Windows 11 are a curious bouillabaisse of different technologies, but
depending on what team built them.
Yeah, the modern ones are often, they're WinUI 3, or WinUI, I should say. Actually, I don't know if it's 3, but they're WinUI.
If they re-implement the desktop apps for Office in Maui, then you'll know. As they probably should have done with WPF
they tried, right?
2007.
Pre-Maui, but they tried to do the Metro thing with the Office apps.
Yeah, that went well.
Poorly.
Well, they were told you weren't going to have to worry about iOS and Android because Windows 8 was going to dominate the whole landscape. Phone, tablet, and PC.
What a dream.
Yeah.
The dream is real.
Remind me what happened, because I don't remember that happening.
There was a large, a large unhappy noise.
Yeah.
And then, And then suddenly,
and then the
Stanford had a new entrepreneur in residence.
Right.
You want to do an Xbox thing, Paulie?
I do.
Do it.
So Microsoft went to Europe and defended their attempted acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Regardless, whatever they had to say, right? Who cares? Except for two things. They announced a deal. They finalized the deal to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo for 10 years, which is hilarious. And they signed a deal with NVIDIA to bring all of their PC Game Pass games to GeForce Now, which is basically them saying, look, we're not proprietary. We're not unilateral. We're going to we're going to make sure stuff is elsewhere, right? This is the message you're sending. We're not Sony, I think is what it really is. I didn't write about this, by the way, but Foss Patents had 2 reports that Sony visited Microsoft sometime in the past week. And the way that these reports came about was people started seeing Sony private jets at SeaTac, and people started following cars around and stuff.
When Sony's visiting, because it's a gaggle. No, it's not one. It's like this small group, and they're very tight. I know this because Sony visited Tech TV when they were looking at buying us, and it's all, they're on black suits, white shirts, black ties, and they stick together. And what
they should do is leave the airport in like 12 identical Escalades and have them all go in different directions,
And then Gerard Butler jumps out of the airplane. Oh, no, that's another story.
Yeah. It's which one of the Escalades has the minigun?
What do you think Sony was saying in this visit?
I don't know. I mean,
we'll drop but see, it's not up to them to drop it.
Yeah, is there a point at which these 2 companies talk and Sony says, okay,
but
accept your terms?
Even if so, can Sony then go to the EU and say, call off the dogs?
Apparently, Sony is writing their. Sony just says stuff and it becomes like a regulator concern. I mean, it's astonishing watching the world tripping over themselves to protect this company.
But they may well be writing They may well be writing a brief saying, hey, we think Microsoft owning this is a good thing.
Wow,
that would take the wind out of the EU sail, I would imagine.
It sure would. Yeah, it sure would.
That's how you do that.
But I gotta say, if you're an EU commissioner, you're not going to drop it because that makes you look like you're a Sony henchman.
Well, that's been the problem all along, right?
Well, that's true.
You are. Well, by the way, okay.
At a time when the public is not impressed with government as a whole, government has to look like it's doing something useful.
Right.
So I've been kind of impressed by, I've made the case, I don't understand why the FTC, a U.S. regulatory body, has even listened to a Japanese company.
Yeah.
Not to be xenophobic about it, but that's strange to me. But let me provide you with the genesis of every single EU action against big tech that has ever occurred. Tiny company from Europe goes to the EC and says, they're beating up on us. Could you do something about it? And then they do. They do exactly what those guys wanted every single time. Sony is not one of those companies.
No.
Sony is a gigantic Japanese tech conglomerate.
Which, by the way, participates in exactly the kind of exclusivities.
Yes, yes, it does.
Now, it makes me wonder if Brad Smith didn't send a letter to Sony saying, here's what we're going to propose to the EU. That all game companies over a certain size make sure all games are available on all platforms.
Or you could just let us have Call of Duty. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they flew over and said, no.
Is there a company that has done more harm to independent game developers in Europe than Sony? No. Maybe. I don't know. I bet Sony's near the top of the list.
Yeah.
The preferential treatment they're getting around the world is astonishing. It would be like the U.S. government defending Microsoft against Netscape. This company is going to put you out of business. Do you need some help? Yeah. It's crazy, but that's what's happening. So, we'll see. Anyway, people always ask me, it looks like there's a lot of opposition to this thing. You think they're going to give it up? They're going to lose this, right? And it's like, honestly, if they stick with it, I think they win.
Yeah.
I got to say though, and I probably have said this before, at what point do you just say, you know what, this isn't worth it? From Microsoft's perspective, what are they fighting? I've lost track of what the point of this is anymore. What's the market opportunity here?
More Azure consumption with World of Warcraft.
Ugh, I don't know. It's such a mess.
Well, and now, the fact that Brad Smith was there, what's the chief counsel doing there? That to me is kind of stunning.
The next representative from the district of whatever. I mean, he's doing what he always does.
Yeah,
he's just standing on a stage in his blue suit. I don't know. Does
Brad have political aspirations?
Oh yes. I think his next job will be a politician of some kind.
Interesting. So when I move to Seattle, he'll be my member of Congress.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Congressman Smith.
Okay. So two more small stories. More. Last summer, there were rumors and then news that Microsoft was doing the obvious and bringing its Game Pass subscription service into a kind of a family plan, right? This sounds really obvious. Sounds like a great idea. And the idea here is that you have just like you have with Microsoft 365 family, You have some adult who is, starts the account, and then they can share it with like 5 people, preferably in your family, although it's called friends and family, so it could be other people as well. They have to be in the same country. Sounds great, right?
Just be friends. Just my
friends. Be friends. That's good. This is, take that Netflix, whatever. Okay, fine. They launched it as one does in Chile and Scotland. No, I'm sorry. Was it Chile?
It's kind of random.
I know. I was
Chile, Hungary, Israel, New Zealand, South
These
Africa.
are the new countries. Oh, Chile's a new country. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry. It was Colombia and Ireland.
Okay.
In September, it
big
launched,
market shares.
Yeah, sorry. It launched in those countries. Now, like you said, I'm sorry. It's Chile. They've added 6 new countries. So Chile, Hungary, Israel, New Zealand, South Africa, and Sweden. So not where you live, but some other places. And, Microsoft gets ripped on for good reason for often going U.S. first and then maybe the rest of the world, maybe not. Like Cortana was a good example of this. Cortana picked up a lot of capabilities in the United States that never came anywhere else. Yeah, and that was a big problem for people in those other places, as it would be. They seem to be overcompensating for that with this thing.
Or is it low-value markets to test it?
I think that's exactly what it is, yeah. And then, the pricing varies by country, and I don't live in any of those countries. I can only imagine. Well, I could just look, I guess. I'm sure it's fairly expensive, but that's fine. Okay. And then I made this kind of offhand comment. Microsoft usually, most months, has 2 drops or 2 announcements of Game Pass titles across cloud, console, and PC. One at the beginning for the first half of the month and one in the middle for the second half of the month. And this month, I noticed the second announcement was really early. And sure enough, they have a third announcement. So despite the fact that this is the shortest month of the year, Microsoft has a third set. Although, actually, 2 of the games are going out on the 28th, and then the other 2 are coming on March 2nd and 3rd. So I guess it bleeds into the next month. So 4 new titles, all of which, no, not all, but most of which are on console, cloud, and PC. One of which is only on console and PC, and none of them... I've never heard of any of them, so whatever. Yeah. F122, it looks like a racing game. Wo Long Fallen Dynasty, Soul Hackers 2, and Merchant Blade. So anyway, if you're paying for Game Pass,
you get more.
Yeah, it keeps getting better.
I did hook up my Xbox Series X to my brand new 77-inch Samsung QD OLED.
Where like the character in Doom is the same size as a normal human being.
Yes.
Icons the size of your head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How is it?
It's beautiful. It's a super. Yeah. It's the brightest OLED ever made.
Did you do Flight Simulator on this thing?
Not yet. That's a good idea. I have it on the Xbox. I just played Harry Potter.
Download like one of those nice like country or region packs where they do the high res.
Just leave it running in the background.
Oh, man, yeah. You
Honey,
should do a train simulator.
We're flying to Dublin. Mm-hmm. When? Right now.
Right now. Come on in the living room.
Honey, we're in a flat spin and about to die.
I'm at the controls, so we're going to hit the Sphinx.
See Mount Kilimanjaro? It's getting closer.
I've never been able to fly under the Eiffel Tower, but it doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying.
I'm going to do it because you and what plane do I have to do it in? A Cessna?
Yeah,
or 747.
There's not a lot of room under there.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room. You're not going to do it in a 747.
That would be pretty fun.
Probably get a glider.
Zut alors! Is he crazy? He's trying to fly under the Eiffel Tower.
The Luftwaffe is back.
No, it looks gorgeous, and it's 144 hertz. It's designed for gaming as well as watching TV.
What did you play, or what did you look at?
I'm embarrassed to admit because you're not supposed to buy this, but I did. Hogwarts we visited or whatever it was. That's it. I'm done. I'm out of here.
Screw this guy.
You're not supposed to give any money to J.K. Rowling ever again.
Yeah. She's already been paid. Now you're just punishing developers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That makes
Legacy.
me feel better. Hogwarts Legacy, which is actually not a great game, but I have a soft spot for Harry Potter.
Yeah. Well, how does it look though? Is it good?
It's good. Yeah. I mean, it's a good game and monitor, 77-inch 444 hertz, and they have a gaming mode and all that stuff. It's
how far back do you have to be though for this to even make sense?
Yeah.
Like in the next room.
I'm sitting on my beanbag. It's only
like it's like when you're sitting in the first row of the movie theater. And you're like, this is. I'm not here to watch a tennis match. I gotta.
It's quite nice. I'm very happy with it. It replaced a much larger projector, but it's so much brighter and it looks so much better. The only challenge is, and it's not for gaming, it's just for watching TV. Samsung hides the high frame rate setting. They for a long time they renamed it. They don't even use the name they use anymore. You have to really kind of know what you're looking for.
I've owned Samsung smart TVs, but trust me,
they're terrible.
I believe it's a game.
Yeah, and I hate the smart TV thing too, because it's always trying to do Samsung's version of all this stuff, and I don't want any of that. Because I have my own streamer devices and so forth.
Do you sign into your Samsung account on the TV?
Oh God, no! I hope not. Maybe I did.
That was the right reaction. Good.
God, no.
Just checking.
Oh my God, no. But they know who I am anyway.
The smart apps aren't going to update themselves. That's all I'm saying.
That's one big Samsung Galaxy you got there.
Yeah. Well, I have the new S23 Ultra too, and supposedly you're able to calibrate the TV using either an iPhone or the S23 camera. But I haven't gotten that working yet. So I'm just going to have Scott
Have you cast from the phone to the TV? The TV.
It's easy. If you, I mean, it has all these, it has all, you plug in, it has a USB port, you plug it in, it says, all right, you want to watch, stuff from there. And you can cast from the phone. There's all sorts of very nice features. It's very, if you're in the Samsung universe, it's very nice. They don't support Dolby HDR, which is the better HDR, so I have to do everything HDR10. But it does look good, and when people come in and see
it's like Dolby Vision, Dolby, whatever.
We were watching The Last of Us. Lisa says, "Do we have to be in the room with them?" It's a little,
it's a dystopia, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, we're right in there with the big fungus, and
Sure.
So it's not. But that's why I had to turn off high frame rate, because it really does feel like. In fact, we were watching The Empire Strikes Back, and I said, "This is the dinkiest, dopiest set I have ever seen." And then I realized, it's upscaling it and doing it in high frame rate.
And then the great scenes where they're standing in front of a matte painting.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's like I see the painting. Was watching Andor, and I did have to turn off the high frame rate because it just looked cheesy, to be honest with you.
Wow.
And as soon as you turn it off, it looks more like a film again and all that.
Right. Wow. That's neat.
It's
digitally generated backgrounds have a frame limit.
Yeah,
right?
It's a Mandalorian
can you set
style
it
volume.
To use different frame rates for different types of content, or
possibly? I'm not going to say you can't, but I did look for that, and I think it's
you could leave it on for gaming, but turn it off.
Yeah, it has a gaming mode, and I presume that the main point of that is to uncap, because I'm not getting anything higher than 60 frames from any of the stuff I look at. But the games, they'll be going up to 144.
Yeah, this sounds like something I'd program into Home Assistant, so you could just walk in the room and say, "Okay, I want to play a game."
Yeah,
and it switched everything, changed the frame rate.
If you plug the Xbox into the external box that the Samsung comes with, it knows and it says, "Oh yeah, this is a game," and it'll do all that automatically.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. It's interesting.
That
it's
external
beautiful
box
TV.
is what got destroyed when lightning hit my house a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I forgot that Samsung does that with their TVs. They don't want, and that's
I actually kind of like that. They have one cable coming off the TV,
and it's flat. You can put it on the wall, and then you have this box. Yeah, I'm very happy with it. It really looks good, and it is fun for gaming to be in the front row of the cinema, as they say. All right, before we get to you're done with the Xbox, yes? Yep. Before we get to the back of the book, can I just put a brief plug? We were talking earlier, and I think this is the tie-in here. We were talking earlier about link bait and how a lot of the content we get now in pretty much every tech publication is very link baity. And that we don't do that. We can't do that because of the nature of podcasting, where it doesn't lend itself. Unless I put a thumbnail of me going, on the front of the thing. We don't do that. We try to put real content in there, and it takes a little bit more engagement from you. I think that's the way to go. I think it makes us a more trusted source, but it also makes it much more expensive to produce, and if we don't get the traffic that a site like CNET or The Verge is going to get. That's where you come in. You can help support what we do here at Twit by joining Club Twit. $7 a month. I'll tell you right up front, $7 a month. There's no discount for a year. You can buy a year at $84, but there's no discount. There is a corporate discount if you buy a bunch of subscriptions for your company or your family or whoever. But the idea is that money goes right into our general fund to pay for the lights, the staff, the podcast. It gives us a little cushion, which is important, especially as podcast advertising starts to dwindle, so that we can develop new shows. I really do want to do This Week in AI, but it's not going to have any advertising support for months, if ever. It gets support from Club Twit. That's why we launch new shows in Club Twit, like Hands on Windows with Paul, Hands on Mac with Micah Sargent, The Untitled Linux Show with Jonathan Bennett, The Giz Fizz with Dick D. Bartolo, Stacy's Book Club, and go on and on. Lots of special events. The great Club Twit Discord, which is a social life all to itself. It's wonderful. I've made some really great friends in there. You will too. You also get the Twit Plus feed, which not only has those additional shows, but ad-free versions of all of our shows, plus stuff that happens before and after the shows that don't normally make it into the podcast. So we think it's a very good package for $7 a month. But the most important point to make is it keeps this content on the air, keeps us creating new content, and your support means the world to us. If you're not a member of Club Twit, and I know you're not, because if you were, you wouldn't be hearing this. Go to twit.tv/Club Twit. We cut it out for the club members. You'll never hear this again. Twit.tv/Club Twit. Please sign up. It really makes a difference. It keeps us alive, frankly. And we appreciate all the support we've gotten so far from so many great members of our club. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Leo Laporte here. I am the founder and one of the hosts at the Twit Podcast Network. I want to talk to you a little bit about what we do here at Twit, because I think it's unique. And I think for anybody who is bringing a product or a service to a tech audience, you need to know about what we do here at Twit. We've built an amazing audience of engaged, intelligent, affluent listeners who listen to us and trust us when we recommend a product. Our mission statement as Twit is to build a highly engaged community of tech enthusiasts. Boy, already your ears should be perking up at that, because highly engaged is good for you. Tech enthusiasts, if that's who you're looking for, this is the place. We do it by offering them the knowledge they need to understand and use technology in today's world. And I hear from our audience all the time, part of that knowledge comes from our advertisers. We are very careful. We pick advertisers with great products, great services, with integrity, and introduce them to our audience with authenticity and genuine enthusiasm. And that makes our host-read ads different from anything else you can buy. We are literally bringing you to the attention of our audience and giving you a big, fat endorsement. We like to create partnerships with trusted brands who are in it for the long run, long-term partners that want to grow with us. And we have so many great success stories. Tim Broom, who founded IT Pro TV in 2013, started advertising with us on day one, has been with us ever since. He said, quote, "We would not be where we are today without the Twit network." I think the proof is in the pudding. Advertisers like IT Pro TV and Audible that have been with us for more than 10 years, they stick around because their ads work. And honestly, isn't that why you're buying advertising? You get a lot with Twit. We have a very full service attitude. We almost think of it as kind of artisanal advertising, boutique advertising. You'll get a full service continuity team. People who are on the phone with you, who are in touch with you, who support you with everything from copywriting to graphic design. So you are not alone in this. We embed our ads into the shows. They're not added later. They're part of the shows. In fact, often they're such a part of our shows that our other hosts will chime in on the ad saying, "Yeah, I love that." Or just the other day, one of our hosts said, "Man, I really got to buy that." That's an additional benefit to you because you're hearing people our audience trusts saying, "Yeah, that sounds great." We always over-deliver on impressions, so you know you're going to get the impressions you expect. The ads are unique every time. We don't pre-record them and roll them in. We are genuinely doing those ads in the middle of the show. We'll give you great onboarding services, ad tech with pod sites
That's free for direct clients. Gives you a lot of reporting, gives you a great idea of how well your ads are working. You'll get courtesy commercials. You actually can take our ads and share them across social media and landing pages. That really extends the reach. There are other free goodies too, including mentions in our weekly newsletter that's sent to thousands of fans, engaged fans who really want to see this stuff. We give you bonus ads and social media promotion too. So if you want to be a long-term partner, introduce your product to a savvy, engaged tech audience. Visit twit.tv/advertise. Check out those testimonials. Mark McCrary is the CEO of Authentic. You probably know him, one of the biggest original podcast advertising companies. We've been with him for 16 years. Mark said the feedback from many advertisers over 16 years across a range of product categories, everything from razors to computers, is that if ads and podcasts are going to work for a brand, they're going to work on Twitch shows. I'm very proud of what we do because it's honest, it's got integrity, it's authentic, and it really is a great introduction to our audience of your brand. Our listeners are smart, they're engaged, they're tech savvy, they're dedicated to our network, and that's one of the reasons we only work with high integrity partners that we've personally and thoroughly vetted. I have absolute approval on everybody. If you've got a great product, I want to hear from you. Elevate your brand by reaching out today at advertise@twit.tv. Break out of the advertising norm. Grow your brand with host-read ads on twit.tv. Visit twit.tv/advertise for more details, or you can email us advertise@twit.tv if you're ready to launch your campaign now. I can't wait to see your product. So give us a ring. Now, I think it's time for the back of the book, and that means Paul Thurrott's tip of the week.
Why not?
Why not?
So we don't talk about Twitter too much on this show, but what the heck? Let's talk about Twitter for a second. So Twitter revealed this past week that they're going to take away the ability to use text messaging as a 2FA solution on the service unless you pay for it, which reminded me, no one should ever use that capability ever on any service. So the recommendation here is obviously you should be using 2FA or two-step authentication, whatever, on all of your online accounts, especially the ones that are related to identity, right? Your Microsoft account, your Google account, your Apple ID, whatever. But you should enable 2FA or whatever the solution is on any service that supports it. Don't do it through text messaging. So don't pay Twitter ever for any reason, but certainly not for this reason. And if you are using Twitter, and you should be using 2FA if you are, just switch to an authenticator app, like the Microsoft Authenticator app or whatever.
Yeah. If you're trying to set that up on your phone, it won't recognize Microsoft Authenticator as a valid authenticator.
Oh, really? I thought
But if you do it, if you tell it you've got, if you try to do it in the phone app and it doesn't detect Google Authenticator, it'll just go, hey, I haven't got one. But you can do it separately on, do it on a laptop, on a computer, set it up, and then tell it you've got Google Authenticator. The codes will work.
Okay.
Right. You just have to jump through the.
I do have it in Microsoft Authenticator, but I don't remember how I did it.
Yeah,
so,
you did it manually against your machine.
Okay, it was some time ago.
Yeah, I set mine up with a FIDO key because I've got FIDO
there
keys.
You go. Okay.
Yeah.
Which, by the way,
yeah. So you're using the more secure authentication anyway.
Well, I like to have things more likely to lose with me at all times.
Yeah.
Nice.
Sure. Yeah, this was a weird thing, but I guess it costs them money, right? Twilio or whatever they're using. So it makes sense for them to say, well, only if you're giving us money. But you shouldn't be using it anyway. I took it off. Twitter didn't used to let you take it off. If you had two-factor at all, you had to have a phone backup. But about 3 or 4 years ago, they said you could uncheck that. And so I haven't had SMS-based TFA on Twitter in ages.
Shouldn't have SMS TFA for
anywhere. Most banks still require it because they don't want to support you if you can't figure it out.
How do you guys feel about so obviously with an online account, you might have different methods, right? So is it acceptable as a tertiary backup, or is it just never acceptable?
Well, I'll tell you what Steve says and what I say, which is the level of security you have is only as good as the worst security you're using.
Yeah.
So if you use two-factor with SMS on anything, the bad guy's going to default to that if he wants to and simjack you, and that's that. So you shouldn't have it turned on at all on anything, even as a backup. It's the weakest link. I occasionally
get a Microsoft Authenticator prompt on my phone when I'm not doing anything.
That's not SMS though. That's right. That's
no,
push.
I know that. I'm sorry, but you could get an SMS notification as well, right? I mean, but I guess the problem with that is that these things are being intercepted, and hackers can more easily
simjack. Yeah. So the point is just don't do it. Is the point?
That should be the point. That should be the point.
If you can possibly avoid it.
Yeah, please avoid it. Yeah,
it's not worth it's not worth $8 a month.
No. No, pay $8 a month so you can be less secure. It doesn't seem like a great solution to me, but I guess that's Twitter 2023. So, all right. So I've been kind of the app pick this week is something called Crayon, and because AI, the A is AI and Crayon. Because God help me, I'm sorry, but I've been using these things to try to create graphics for this YouTube channel I have with my wife. So. Last week I talked about some of the images I created of like paintings of Mexico City in the style of Frida Kahlo. Kahlo, yep.
Oh, neat.
And interestingly, on Crayon, if you enter the term Frida Kahlo, it makes pictures of her, and she's not the most attractive woman in the world. So
she also did make paintings of herself.
Yeah,
it's
we know what she looked like.
She's the inventor of the unibrow. So I took her out of it.
I don't think she invented it.
No, I'm kidding. But
she certainly popularized it. We'll give you that.
She's the most famous purveyor of unibrow.
There you go.
So I threw a couple of images into the Discord of some of the images I created. And so what I did was these are just like paintings of Mexico City in the spring, like oil paintings, that kind of style. So they're nice. I mean, it did a nice job. And actually I like the kind of size and shape of these images better than the ones I was creating with DALL-E. But you are able to customize DALL-E.
These are actually quite nice.
Yeah, they're nice. You have to.
You showed us the Eternal Spring ones last week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think you showed us the Frida Kahlo.
No, I didn't. I never meant to make. So the query I used was in the style of Frida Kahlo.
Right.
And when I did that
you got Frida winking at you.
Well, these aren't. Cool. I didn't make those. Someone else put those in.
I'm sorry. Those are the GIFs.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Like these are nice.
Salma Hayek did play Frida Kahlo.
That's right.
She did.
So,
yeah.
Right.
And there couldn't be two women on the more opposite ends of the spectrum than those two. Yeah. But yeah. And I think it was her husband Diego Rivera is what's that guy's name?
Diego Rivera. Yeah.
No, but the actor who played him in that movie was the guy.
Oh, was it Antonio Banderas? Antonio Banderas?
No, it should have been.
Should have been
fantastic.
Husband,
no, it was
or something.
The guy was Doc Ock in the original Spider-Man movie.
Oh yeah, I love him. Yeah.
God, his name's right at the tip of my tongue. I'll think of it later. I'll think of it as soon as the show ends. Whatever. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. Anyway, I'm just kind of plowing through these AI services. I'm really interested in this. Speaking of which, Leo.
Yes.
I wanted to use Midjourney.
Okay.
Midjourney, you have to actually join through Discord.
Yes.
Is this something that is? Can I do this on Twitch Social, or how does that work?
Oh. Okay. Let me show you how Discord works, Paul. So
please do, because it is really complicated.
It's a chat client. But this is here's our Club Twit, right? Yeah. But notice I have some other icons. I also am in a Valheim Discord. I am in a Lisp Discord. I am in a podcasting community, and wow, there's Midjourney.
Well, so the thing is, I have the Midjourney.
So you're in here, right? Looking at people's.
Yeah, I have that.
Okay.
Yep.
So you want to know how to pay for it?
Is that what you have to do to use it at all?
Well, you can right now. Okay, so.
Like, how do I use this?
Okay. So there is a section which I would recommend reading called How Do I Do This?
I love that this has turned into
There's
RTFM.
A help. Well, this is what I always do with you. So I always ask you how that works. Where is it? When you first join, they say read this. But basically, it's you do /image.
Mm-hmm.
And then you type the prompt.
Oh, and then you just do it right in the Discord.
Yeah.
Chat.
And that's what's both the blessing and the curse of Midjourney. Because, so you join a newbies channel.
Okay.
And the blessing and the curse is, the blessing is you see what other people are doing. You see the images they're getting, and you see the prompts they're using, which helps you get better at it. The curse is everybody sees the stupid stuff you do. Mm-hmm. So but everybody else in there is a noob as well. So yeah, this is valuable. And then, but somewhere, and I don't see it now, maybe it's under, there is a whole help section telling you how to do this. It's in there somewhere. When you first joined, it said, read this before you join. And of course, like any good user, you just jumped right out of that. Might be in announcements. Hi, everyone. I don't know. Somewhere there'll be, read this, and it describes how you do everything in there. I don't know where it is. Maybe rules, terms of service, community guidelines now.
Yeah, I know.
Alfred Molina.
I got it to appear in the app.
Alfred Molina.
Just couldn't figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, so you're now, it's one of your Discord channels. That's what's over here on the left. But you have to read the thing. It's basically /image and then a prompt. And then you only get a certain number of them for free. And then it'll say, well, you want more, you're going to have to pay for them. Alex Lindsay pays like the top dollar, which is $50 a month, but he does all sorts of stuff in there. It's amazing.
But it's not clear like where I'm going in this channel to do even to enter stuff. Like it's
you go into newbie. Well, again, if you'd read it, you would know.
All right.
Is that 2 RTFMs? Wow.
I would say.
Would I be being paddled now if I was in a room with you?
You could go in office hours and ask, but I think they'll just tell you should. Let's see. Go to home, the official server. These newbie channels are where you do the /imagine. Okay. You don't do it in here. You do it in the newbies because you're a newbie.
Obviously.
Yeah. And then there's one of the channels in there is
it has this message. It's like follow to get this channel's updates in your own server. But that's
no.
You don't need to do that.
You just want how to use it. Oh, wait a minute. I'm open up. Oh, there we go. Okay, it's under info. The reason I didn't see it is because I had info collapsed. #getting started. Read that.
All right. I will bother you no further.
Read that. This is the start of the Getting Started channel. Welcome.
It sure is.
And it tells you how to create an image.
Go to
I'm sorry, not image, imagine. Channels. I should have said imagine, not image. Okay, so I gave you the wrong thing. And then it shows you how to get variations and upscales, how to pay for it if you want more. So this is all in the welcome to.
I found this curiously difficult.
People complain about Mastodon. Somebody was saying, I can't, he said he was in our Discord channel. He's in a club. Yeah. Said, I can't figure out Mastodon. I said, dude, you figured out Discord. You're way harder.
I get ripped on when I tell people that Mastodon can be a little intimidating for people because, with an online service, you typically type in your email address and some password you want, and you're in. And on Mastodon, you got to do some work,
Yeah.
And
a little work. I
do think that's a little more intimidating for most people.
A little more work. It's not, look, thank goodness.
No, I'm not saying
Twitter.
It's insurmountable. I'm just saying, it's not the normal experience.
No. Well, it's not.
For like a normie.
If Twitter is the normal experience, it's not Twitter. I agree.
Yeah.
It's not
it's not just
hard.
Twitter. I mean, anything. Like you could join, anyone today could join Facebook in 10 seconds if they wanted to.
That's
Mastodon
true.
is a little more work.
Yeah, because you're right. You're right. Because it's many different servers.
It's not a complaint. It's just an observation.
There's different servers.
Yeah.
Our server's
quite good. It doesn't really matter which one you pick.
I'll tell you, it does a little bit because that's your community, right? So the local feed is the people that you are on your server.
On that server.
So if you join Twit Social, that's all Twit listeners. So that's a different kind of community. If you're a lawyer, you should join a law server. Paul should join a server for idiot savants. I mean, it's just you should join the server.
Just straight up idiots.
You belong.
You just say it. It's fine. I don't care.
You can follow anybody on any other server, but the local feed is always going to be your current server, which is kind of. I mean, you don't even have to follow anybody on your local server because you're going to see all their posts in local. So the home feed is the people you follow, like a Twitter feed. Local is the people on your server. Federated is all the people who are on your server that they follow, including yours. So it's not everything, but it's everything followed by people on your server. So you do want to join a good server with people who are interested in the outside world, and because that way your federated feed's better as well. You're right; it's way too complicated. Twitter was complicated when it first started, though, I think.
It's not, and not especially difficult to switch.
That's what everyone says. I hear you.
Yeah, you can switch servers. It's very easy to switch servers because you can take all your followers with you. If you are listening to this show, you are
realistic pictures of Christina Kirchner as a goddess.
You are now in Midjourney. Congratulations.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this show, you're welcome to join Twit Social, our Mastodon instance. I do approve everybody to keep the spammers out. Just go to twit.social, sign up, and make sure you mention that you heard it on Windows Weekly or that you know Paul and Richard, because if you just say, I'm getting out of here, I'm getting out of Twitter, I'm not going to let you in. You need to show you listen to the show. That's all. That's how we keep it kind of friendly to people like you and me. Would you like to, you did Crayon, so I think it's time for Run as Radio, Mr. Richard Campbell.
Yes, sir. So this week's show's with Michael Niehaus, one of our favorite folks, super smart. We were talking about migrating to Windows 11. And again, this is very much from a sysadmin perspective. So what you're looking at is by October of 2025, Win 10 goes into extended support. And that will start off probably being about $50 per year per machine, then up to $100 the following year, maybe $200. I'm following what they did with Win 7 as they went into extended support. And so those numbers add up pretty quickly if you've got a shop full of machines. So this is the big push to say, hey, it's 2023. You got about 2 years. You get to work on Win 11 for your company. And that's really what Michael and I ran down, was just like, okay, what's the deployment look like? What's the move look like? Do we really want to do this with replaced hardware? Are we going to migrate in place? Like, those are all the things that we worry about.
Nice.
I have listened to part of this episode, and I will finish it, but I was interested to hear him sort of admit, you look at the stats for upgrades on Windows 11 in the enterprise, and it's
not compelling,
non-existent.
Huh. Well, I mean, it's the old service pack thing right off the bat, right? Like, it's like,
yes,
I'll wait for a service pack before I do a thing, and then, but that's now happened. And then it's also group policy issues. It's,
I have something that works, and you want me to do work to switch to something different. Like what?
Why would I break something that works?
Yeah, it is I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's a good truth. And Michael's such a straight man on all of this. He's very deadpan and very wise. And so, but plus, it's easy to fall in the trap of, we do this with Configuration Manager, or it's only new hardware with Autopilot. It's like, look, MDT, Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, works just fine. Just some extra steps, some extra scripts, you can get it done. So you don't have to spend money on it.
runasradio.com for Richard's fine show.
Thank you.
Now, let's do some licka. Let's get licked up.
So I have been building up a set of notes to walk you through the whiskey creation process, and then also introduce you to whiskeys that I think are profound in that process.
Okay.
So we should start at the beginning, and that's specifically with barley. All right, barley is the grain used to make beer and to make Scottish whiskey. Other whiskeys elsewhere in the world often use a blend of grains. With bourbon, it's typically corn, barley, and rye. The Irish will do whatever they want,
as usual.
It's wild what you can find on a mash bill for an Irish whiskey. But look, there's a lot. Barley is not that popular a grain anymore. It's one of the ancient grains, right? Originally found in the Fertile Crescent, is part of the branches of all of the grains. It was one of the earliest to break off. But it didn't respond as well to baking. Like barley based breads, don't taste very good.
No, they're very hard and yucky.
Yeah. Where wheat did respond well, and so then when you get into the engineering of food during the Green Revolution, wheat also adopted to far more areas, and so now wheat is grown everywhere. So the yield on barley is relatively low. It is a relatively expensive grain to grow, but for certain products, specifically beer and Scottish whiskey, it does very well. And so there's about over 5,000 strains of barley in the world. but only 10 are approved for Scottish whiskey. It's specifically a kind of barley called Hardium Dishcon, and it is what's called a 2-row barley. So there are also 6-row barleys, and that's basically how the seed structure goes together. 6-row barley is commonly grown in North America, and most American beers are done with 6-row barley as the seed crop. But 2-row, they get very precise on the good barley. This comes down to this whole idea of terroir, which is a French term. They typically apply to wine, but terroir for barley matters a lot as well. They look in whiskey making for very high starch counts and really low nitrogen content. So this is a bit to do about fertilizer, a bit on growing areas. And so typically only the sandy soils of the eastern part of the UK grow barley particularly well, which is an important problem because whiskey has gotten very popular. And so the UK cannot grow enough barley for the demand that exists in the business. And so the vast majority of barley today is well, some still grown in the UK, it's grown elsewhere, but there's only a few companies that do all of the barley works for the distilleries. And so barley works being grow the barley, malt the barley, which is sprouted to turn it into sugar, dry it, and then grind it to grist. And so most distilleries just buy the finished grist ready to go into the wash, and we'll talk about that stuff on another show. But there are a few exceptions here and there, and that's today's whiskey. Today's whiskey is the Macallan Estate. Now, Macallan is a very popular Speyside whiskey. I've drank plenty of them over the years. I have had an opportunity to taste this particular one at one of my very favorite whiskey bars in the whole world, the Quaish at the Craigellachie in the Speyside. It is a fairly expensive whiskey, runs about $300 US. But the distinct part about it is that it is grown from barley, literally from the Macallan Estate. So the Macallan does have a bit of growing grain, and they use it to, they actually send it off to a grister, so someone who actually does the malting and the gristing and so forth for them, but then they distill it. I found it tastes very much like Macallan 18 for about twice the price.
Okay. So it's a deal. Is that what you're saying?
But it really begs the question, why would you do this? And now we get into sort of the reality about an awful lot of whiskey is that when you have a whiskey aficionado, you're trying to get them something special.
Yeah.
And something
one of
special
a kind
would be, this is a whiskey that's literally from barley from the Macallan Estate. And that resonates with some folks.
Sure.
And you pay a substantial premium to make that true.
Yeah. It's 85 proof also, which,
it's about, that means it's been cut with water, right? Because it didn't come out of the barrel at that number.
Right. I only drink barrel strength from now on, cask strength, because of you. Because of you.
I'm a bad influence in many different ways. But to me, as I go through this set of stories, I'm going to always bring you to a whiskey that is an exception to the particular stage. So there are different ways to do malting, and I think there's a few of them that do very cool ways of malting. There's a few different wash techniques, and I think there's some cool ways to do that, and so on. So if you like this, I can keep going into this kind of space. It's just
I'm very interested.
I
encourage our listeners to write and email and let us know. But I think it's a fascinating subject.
And it's crazy to think there's 5,000 different kinds of barley now, mostly because humans have messed with it. But only a handful of them are ever used for this.
I mean, there are that many different kinds of labradoodles now, too. So.
Once upon a time, there was only a wolf. Every other kind of dog you've seen, people made, right? 30,000 years of messing with canine genes.
So your recommendation would be to try the Macallan 18 instead of this, but
if you want a really nice sherried Speyside,
sounds good.
For about $200 US, you could buy yourself Macallan 18 and wow yourself.
Okay.
Again, a lot of money for a whiskey. If you want to, that's a first drink whiskey. Yeah, try that. If you're going to have whiskey, do that the first drink, and then
then
you can step down.
Then you can drink some Everclear and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and eventually it's
usually
just like,
when people start drinking, that's not when they make the best decisions. No. But you're right. That's the right way to do it.
Start with the good whiskey, not end with the good whiskey. Yeah.
No, I just was a weekend away with a group of tech friends, and one of them produced a 24-year-old Glenmorangie from 1998. Wow. And we polished off that bottle in 2 days.
Yeah.
And that is abuse of a very good whiskey.
That's the first sherried whiskey I ever had was Glenmorangie, and I was impressed.
Glenmorangie, yeah,
really
impressed.
It's
lovely. Yeah. And the 24 year was stunning. But
that's about the year I had, but it was in 1998, so
there you go.
Yeah, it
wasn't old.
It
was a little younger.
Tan.
Yeah, and the miracle when we talk about whiskey, and I've used this line before, is like what's amazing is that Macallan 12 tastes like Macallan 12 every year. Yeah. How do you do that?
It's blended,
right? And that's it's the combining of barrels. Remember that the 12 means that's the youngest thing in the bottle.
Right.
There may be olders to get to the quote unquote flavor profile they're trying to get to. And for the most part, barley has been stabilized. They tend to only use one particular species of barley. They very specific characteristics to it. It's only when you get into the malting and the gristing phases, which again we could talk about later, that you get a recipe that's specific to a distillery.
They do make a Macallan 18 cask. Triple cask.
Yeah, just hard to find.
I might try that someday when I don't have anything to do the next day. Mr. Richard Campbell, runisradio.com is where you'll find him and his podcasts. It's so great to have you on the show, by the way. I really appreciate the developer and enterprise angle you've brought to the show. Because
I'm glad. I'm having a real fun time.
Good.
And next week's going to be interesting because I will be in New Zealand.
Oh, all right.
And but I have a long layover in the Auckland airport between my flight in and my flight down to Queenstown,
where
I am officiating a wedding.
Oh, nice.
And so I thought I might find a little corner there where I can set up the rig and talk to you all from
I can't wait.
Seriously jet-lagged state.
Auckland. That's where Trey Ratcliffe lives in Queensland and Queenstown.
Well,
right?
the family farm is outside of Taronga, and I'm going to spend some time with them as well.
Nice. Oh, I'd love to
first the wedding.
Very nice. Richard, thank you for being here. Paul Thurrott is at thurrott.com, THURROTT.com. Join as a premium member. You'll get all of those great articles he's written about programming Windows, which are apparently soon to be part of a larger book, which will be published at leanpub.com. That's where his field guide to Windows 11 lives. Now with a soft center of a field guide to Windows 10 right in there. And
center.
It's the GUI Caramel Center. You can choose your price, get the greatest book on Windows 10/11 out there. Every week they join us, whether from the Auckland airport or from their homes in Lower Macungie Valley and Coquitlam, BC. It's about 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern time on a Wednesday. That would be 1900 UTC. For the next couple of weeks anyway, then we go back to summertime, and I'll warn you about that when that happens. You can watch us do it live at live.twit.tv. You can also chat with us live if you're watching live at irc.twit.tv or in the Club Twit Discord. After the fact, on-demand versions of the show are available from the website, twit.tv/ww. There's also a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Windows Weekly. Might be Windows Weekly Show. If you go to youtube.com/twit, all the shows are linked there. The YouTube's great if you
youtube.com/Windows Weekly.
Just Windows Weekly. Okay.
Yep.
Is there a dash or just one word?
Nope. Just
okay.
one word.
That's a good place to go if you want to share a clip, because that YouTube makes that very easy, and then people can get a link to the whole show and find out more. And of course, if you subscribe in your favorite podcast player, that's another way to get it. Marco Arment, who wrote one of the most popular podcast players, Overcast, is going to be our guest on MacBreak Weekly next Tuesday, by the way. Nice. Kathy Gellis is coming up to talk about the Supreme Court arguments. She's just left the court and will be on the show with us momentarily for This Week in Google, so stay tuned for that if you're watching live. Otherwise, we will see you, winners and dozers, next week on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.
Ciao, man. Hey, I know you're super busy, so I won't keep you long, but I wanted to tell you about a show here on the Twit network called Tech News Weekly. You are a busy person, and during your week, you may want to learn about all the tech news that's fit to, well, say, not print, here on Twit. It's Tech News Weekly. Me, Micah Sargent, my co-host, Jason Howell. We talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news, and we love the opportunity to get to share those stories with you and let the people who wrote them or broke them share them as well. So I hope you check it out every Thursday right here on Twit.